Hi everyone, and welcome to Stump Jen. How are we all this evening? That's a silly question because you lot can't answer except in the chat. But hey, why not ask these questions anyway? Jen. How are we all this evening? Oh yes, and there we go. Sorry, I do have my audio on in the background, and I'll just fix that because I'm an idiot. I actually said to Sam, hi Sam, who's joined me this evening. Or this afternoon, as it is for Sam. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Just getting a cup of tea because I've not been awake too long, as usual.
What did I say to you just before the stream intro ended? That I left my audio. I thought I might have left my audio on in the background. I was rapidly trying to fix it. Yeah, because as everybody knows, I'm the queen of audio issues. I don't know why. They'll probably say something in the channel like in a few seconds, like, "Hey, we can't hear anyone," because Jen's stupid. But that's why you guys can all stump me. So yeah, they obviously can hear us because they're saying they're awesome there. So that's brilliant. Oh, hi Chad. I might shoot Chad a link if he wants to hop in. Jay. Jay. Given that I know people are hearing because somebody said they were feeling awesome. Even Sam's audio is good. It wasn't good before we started, but it came good, thankfully. So
see, I worked out what makes it on and off good. So I managed to remove that from my laptop.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That is brilliant. I'm glad you were able to sort it though.
Yeah. So unless something else then continues to do it, like Skype was fucking with it.
Oh, and look who we have here. We have Jeff. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Hello. Hi, Jen. Hi, Sam.
Which one's you? Is it? No, it's not that one. It must be. No, I'll get it right eventually. There he is. I'll click on the right box eventually and add the right person in. I'm having a good day. Audio problems at the beginning. That's typical for my streams, isn't it? Although I'm not as bad as Mero, who went on for 15 minutes this morning before realising she hadn't actually started the stream.
Oops.
Her and Notcha were just talking in the background to each other for 15 minutes whilst the chat's saying, "Hey, aren't you meant to be going? Aren't you meant to have started?" It was brilliant. Which is good, because I was 15 minutes late, so that was awesome.
Convenient.
Well, for me. So I'm glad you're both good. Now, given that you two are in the UK and I'm in Australia, I'm assuming you didn't overeat over the last 24 hours.
No. Though I did eat for once.
You did eat when I say for once?
Yes. When I say for once, I mean normally I have 2 meals a day. Yesterday I had 3.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a something. Chad's still waking up. Okay, that's okay. That's fine, Chad. We've got a couple of people here, and I'm sure there'll be somebody in the chat who eventually wants to hop in and make up a third guest, which will be a lot of fun. Okay, there's something I want to have a whinge about, and it applies in the UK as well because Australia gets their cue on how this works from the UK. In fact, when they were talking about changing the rules in Australia and said what their rules are, they're exactly the same that the rules had changed to in the UK like 5 months ago. So it's governed by bigotry and stupidity that comes out of the you know what it's like, Sam, within the UK, and that's to do with blood donation.
Yes.
And I have tweeted about it, and I made a video about it last year. Now, since then, the Australian Red Cross has slightly changed their rules because the UK did. And the UK have changed their rules again, and Australia is looking at changing their rules again at the start of next year. But they are still fucked up, and they are still going to be fucked up. Because the current rules state that if you are a gay man or a trans person, you cannot donate blood, in Australia this is, unless you have been celibate for 12 months prior to giving blood. In the UK, it is currently 3 months, which is still fucking ridiculous. And yeah, it's kind of the way they're doing this balance of things. Part of the problem for trans people and trans women especially is that the Red Cross within the UK and Australia have decided that trans women count as in the statistics for men, which is ridiculous because whilst there is a higher rate of HIV in trans people, they actually know that the occurrence of that is due to socio-economical status and not the fact that people are trans. Well, it is indirectly in that you're dealing with a minority and minorities have greater pressures on them. But the rate of infection amongst trans people is no different than, say, in the US for Hispanics or people who are not white, basically. Because if you cop the prejudices, you get harder life you get a harder life, so you're more likely to partake of drugs or have to go into prostitution or whatever other reasons, or not be able to afford medical care. And this is why these pressures are higher for these groups. So they totally ignore that and they just go with, they must be having butt sex, so they got a higher chance of having HIV or some other disease. Totally ignoring the fact that they have to screen the blood anyway.
Good old-fashioned AIDS is a gay disease.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the transphobia of equating trans women to men. Which I don't even... I mean, whilst that's fucked up as well, the whole fact that they're going, oh, well, gay men have a bigger chance of getting this. Well, gay men have the same pressures on them as trans people, especially if they're openly gay or they're in an environment where there's a lot more pressures on gay people and stuff like that. So there is that higher incidence. But those incidences are coming down for that demographic and for the... the trans demographic is coming down too. But even so, when you take the percentage of trans people, 5 years ago, the rate of incidence of HIV in trans people was about 5 times what the average white cis population was, which actually worked out to be about the Hispanic ratio in the US. Effectively, you can say it's an effect of being a minority group that's pressured and got pressured more in the US, because I'm going from US statistics because they're the only ones who actually track it properly. Because of the extra pressures they have on them from society, so there's more chance of going into prostitution and drugs and things like that. Especially when you look at the depression rates for trans people. But in Australia, because there is actually slightly less pressure on trans people, the figures are actually a little bit better than that. And trans people, despite being a minority that's got pressures on them, has only got 2 times the rate of HIV of the white cis population. But the percentage of trans people who actually have HIV is less than in the cis population, but the cis population, unless they're gay, don't have the same requirements put on them. So effectively you're taking blood from people who are actually a bigger danger to you without these same requirements than the trans people. And that's just fucked up to the extreme, especially when the reasons why people are more of a risk with donating their blood isn't because of their sexuality, their gender identity, or anything like that. It's how promiscuous they are, whether they take drugs and share needles. It's other things that they do, not who they are, that makes a fucking difference. Yes, anal sex is worse for spreading some sexually transmitted diseases, but if those people are in mostly monogamous type relationships, and by monogamous I mean you can be polyamorous and still be monogamous, so that doesn't matter, but as long as you're not being promiscuous.
Closed relationship then. Closed
relationships, that's the word I'm looking for. So as long as you're in closed relationships and you're not being excessively promiscuous, your risk factors are lower than somebody who is cis and heterosexual who is promiscuous. And they already asked those questions about promiscuity, so why the fuck do they have to ask what your sexuality is and what your gender identity is for the purposes of excluding you from giving blood? I do understand that there are well, they're not good reasons, but there are a couple of reasons why they would want to know people's best sex for giving blood. Mostly in the case of trans men who give blood, because there is a particular antibody that people who were born women who've been pregnant can build up in their system that can cause problems when used in transfused blood, which is put into anybody. It's not just if it's put into men. If it's put into women who haven't been pregnant themselves, it can actually cause heart attack, I believe. So, or increased risk of heart attack. So they don't like to do that. So they like to know if the person's been pregnant. But they don't even have to ask the gender. They just going to ask, have you been pregnant? And if it's no, then it's not an issue. And they still have to test for this antibody anyway, because some people get pregnant, have a miscarriage, and don't even know they've been pregnant. So they still have to test for it. So yeah, it's one of those fucked up, ridiculous things, and it comes from that same area of bigotry that exists throughout the UK and shit like this. And it's something that Australia just goes, oh, the UK is doing this, let's fucking follow. Instead of following the example of New Zealand or Canada, who only go on people's promiscuity. I mean, even if you're looking at people's promiscuity, you could ask the question, do you regularly engage in anal sex? Which would actually be a better question than asking if you're gay or not, because there are cis women who have anal sex too and put themselves at exactly the same risk. So, yeah, it's kind of all massively messed up. Hi, Chad. How are you?
Hello.
You're coming at the end of my rant.
See, my
No,
favorite.
don't listen to the whole thing.
My favorite bit of misinformation about GRSM people that I have heard is that because they're more likely to have anal sex, that means that having any gay sex can cause the creation of new STDs.
Oh, that's just bullshit. That's not true.
No, but I've heard
that doesn't even follow the fucking science at all. No, I mean the fact of the matter is, it's the type of sex life you lead, not your sexuality or your gender identity, that puts you makes you more of a risk. And those questions are asked anyway, so I don't see why they have to know the other stuff and why it should be a concern, especially when you have.
I'll jump in here.
Yep.
And play the devil's advocate for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because a lot of what you're saying, statistically speaking, is absolutely correct. A big problem with a lot of things, like in Canada, we have Canada Blood Services. It's a separate organization that handles all of it. And when they were setting their policies, when they were originally being created back in the 50s or 60s or whatever time it happened to be, they had to base their policies on the available data at the time. And the available data at the time, because it was underfunded only towards, again, all the marginalized things you're talking about now, it was always, hey, the gays are bad. Hey, the gays are bad.
Yeah,
and there wasn't a whole lot of study going into that.
This policy that's coming from the UK that Australia is going to adopt next year was only adopted in the UK 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So they have all the new data. They know what the facts are, but they're still doing this. And even the policy that came before, when they said 12 months, was still based on the new data. So it's coming from a place of bigotry that's highly rampant in politics in the UK and in a lot of organisations. Unfortunately, I hate to talk crap about your country, Sam, but it's true, unfortunately. And Australia is just copy and paste. Australia is just copy and paste, and I'm like, that is messed up.
Yeah,
the thing is that, it's... Go on, sorry, Chad.
But I was just going to say, when Jen was saying that they have to test the blood anyways, that's not really an argument it's not as strong an argument as you think, because if they are sampling from and again, this is not the epidemiological space they base their policies on. If they're taking blood from high-risk populations, then they're spending additional time and resources on those things, which would, according to their false narrative, be essentially waste time and effort. And given that these are
because
limited resources.
But that's false, obviously, because for a start, anybody in Australia who is a new blood donor, their blood is automatically screened before it goes in the pool.
Oh,
and they ask you these questions every time you go in to give blood. So they're relying on exactly the same screening for regardless of whether you're heterosexual or homosexual or whether you're cis or trans. So they're relying on the same questions to get the honesty regardless of whether your blood is screened that time in the batch that's screened that time or not. So and what is it? Are cis people less likely to lie than trans people, or heterosexual people less likely to lie than gay people? I mean, this is a ridiculous.
Again, it's based on the false epidemiological space they're dealing with.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they can only base their policies based on what the government has decided to accept, and that's where the policy comes into it. Whether or not the government is willing to accept science, it's climate denial all over again.
Yeah,
but
at a government level.
I personally don't fault the blood workers. That's the only thing. I don't fault the blood workers. Because
I don't fault the blood workers at all. I fault the policy makers.
Right up to the top of the organization, like even the people at the top of that, they still have to deal with what the politics is. So they're still getting the shit rolling downhill. So when we're talking about blood services and things like that, I just want to separate that from the politics of it. That's my
But and the bit that really frustrates me in Australia is that the AMA in Australia, Australian Medical Association, actually put forward a thing to the government, Australian government, saying that their policies were outdated and they needed to base it more on what was in New Zealand and Canada than what was happening in the UK. And the government just said, no, we're just going to follow the UK anyway. So
now, here's a funny one, is that I've noticed that a lot of people who, certainly around me at least, a lot of people who say that there's no prejudice in society against LGBT people know that there is.
Oh, there definitely is.
Because, for example...
Well, they have to.
My mum, for example, always used to say that they're not prejudiced against and that there's nothing wrong or whatever. But the instant that I came out to her as non-binary and then she saw me in a dress, she started freaking out and wanting me to be super careful where I go so that I don't get assaulted.
Exactly. Well, what this does is it stigmatizes people. What really frustrates me is the Australian Red Cross constantly is crying out for people to give blood. And if you actually look in the Australian Red Cross's last appeal, there's a whole heap of trans and gay people saying there, will allow us to give blood. We will come and give blood, but you won't let us. And then their response is, well, if you stop having sex for 12 months, you can give us blood. Fuck off. Just fuck off with that. Yeah. Why should people have to do that just to fulfill your stupid little crap? Yeah. But no, they're going to cry out that they want this blood, but they're not going to get it because they are. And the majority of people who are in the LGBT plus community are aware of sexually transmitted disease and are sensible.
It's a non-issue now.
It's a non-issue, and you can pick them out in the screening just like you do with heterosexual people who are promiscuous. And I will guarantee you, not because heterosexual people are more promiscuous than LGBTQ plus people, but because there's more of you, that there will be more sexually promiscuous people who lie on those forms than there will be LGBTQ plus people. Just
almost
by percentage of numbers. So the biggest danger that there is in the system, even with allowing LGBTQ plus people to give blood, is still not going to be the LGBTQ plus people, provided you ask the same questions and do exactly the same screening you're doing now.
Yeah. It's a policy that's just it is getting better in Canada anyways. But
Canada's pretty good. New Zealand's pretty good. As Lone Wanderer said, they do ask the question about do you regularly partake of anal sex, but they also ask whether or not you're with a regular partner or how promiscuous you are. So just having anal sex isn't enough to cross you off if you're with a regular partner. So if they know that you're in a safe,
they could just get you to provide proof of an STD.
No, that test pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a risk with giving blood, but those risks come from the the way people actually live their lives more so than who those people are. Yes, certain demographics can be more
where I
at
want
risk.
to put a pin in it.
Yep.
Because when we're talking about groups and populations, let's just remove the LGBT context for now. Let's just talk about a general population, say refugees.
Yes.
So now, what if a refugee comes? Let's say specifically African refugees. They come over. Now they come from a higher risk population for a different set of diseases than we have.
Yes.
Is Canadian Blood Services or any blood services, is it okay for them to say, no, we don't want to take from you based on the way?
They would ask those questions anyway, and depending on exactly where they came from, what they knew about this place where they came from, and what they answered for their promiscuity questions, they would then decide whether they'd reject them or screen their blood. And they would screen their blood if they're a new donator. So, it's deciding whether or not you're going to waste the resources on screening the blood, which is where it comes down to. But
and that's where my concern is. And just because I know people who have worked in that, and in terms of the amount, they get upset the day after Super Bowl because people come donating their blood, and it's so full of shit they literally have to throw the blood away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like things like that, have to throw these things out. So the idea of putting man hours of somebody I know towards, something that's not going to be helping, in some.
However, by asking the questions, whether or not these people whether or not an LGBTQ person can give the blood, you actually have the conditions on the website and the forms when the people come in and they fill them out and they tick them. So if the person's going to lie on it, they will lie on it anyway. I mean, I'm intersex, but I'm also trans, so I can't give blood. But I could easily go in and lie and give blood. But I wouldn't do that because I could be putting somebody else's life at risk if there was something in particular because of my genetic makeup, especially with being intersex, that could cause an issue. So you don't want to lie about giving blood.
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
People shouldn't.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to defend that. I'm just saying. Yeah, and people.
Yeah. That is the line of
what you're
reasoning
just saying about. Exactly, and that's one of the reasons why when I was emphasizing that these policies were made back in the 50s and 60s.
Oh yeah.
A lot of gay people, and a lot of especially gay LGBTQIA plus people would have lied about that stuff. Yep. So by asking those questions on the thing, even just having the question is enough to stop someone from going in to donate. So it's a way of removing a population that would, and at that time was higher. And again, that's the epidemiological space they knew about.
And also,
I'm not saying,
and also more prejudice towards at that time too.
Yep,
so they didn't want the gays and the trans to give blood. You might catch it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a complicated thing, but it's
I agree it's complicated.
A lot of bureaucratic inertia.
I agree it's a complicated thing, but we have moved on from the 50s and 60s, and those policies haven't. They're still archaic, and they're still prejudiced.
The thing is that a lot of politics is going to prevent, in most spaces, progress based on the newest data, because that requires a system overhaul. And governments aren't willing to fund a system overhaul because that takes more than 4 or 5 years, which is their term, and they don't want to plan anything past their term.
Exactly, you have to hire like 2 or 3 people to do it, so it's not a zero cost thing to do this. You have to hire a lawyer to change those policies, and if they're getting cut back to like maybe next year.
And Australia isn't even bothering doing its own policy; it's just copy and pasting it.
Yeah.
And we don't even have somebody reviewing it. We copy and paste it from the UK. It's messed up.
Yeah.
Okay, your dumpster fire aside.
Our dumpster fire aside,
I mean, back in like the early 80s, I mean, it was men who had sex with men were placed under lifetime ban for giving blood. That was how bad it was. And I think they got to 1 year deferral in 2011.
And that was what was copied to here last year. That's how long it took for us to copy you. But within 6 months, we're copying your 3-month one. Yeah, which I still outright called them on it and said that's just bullshit.
Well, and apparently
my older brother's like. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Jeff.
Apparently, there's supposed to be because there's in 2019 there's some blood donations services set up a steering group to look at possibilities of individualized risk assessment.
That would make sense.
With this, yeah, and it says the report is due to be back by the end of this year. So
they might be revised next year, and we would get this 6 months later.
But this is obviously. Well, this is a steering, but obviously this is a steering group. This isn't a government thing. This is a.
Oh yeah, I know what it's like in the UK.
Is it? I think is it Public Health England, Terence Higgins funds.
So we're talking 2025 then. They will leave it till the next government.
It could very well be because this is
the Tories, so it's almost certainly going to be left until the next government.
It'll be left until the next Labour government, which could be a bloody long time.
How long were we dealing with Section 28, for goodness sake, you know?
How long have you been dealing with GRA reform?
Yeah.
And now they're going to do the public appraisal again, despite the fact you already had it, and it came in favour of doing the reform, and then they decided to scrap it. I'm like, yeah. Your country is weird and regressive.
Yeah.
And we copy you.
I will contain the raging leftist in me, but
I did.
It is the case that if we fixed our fucking voting system, we'd have a significantly more left-wing government.
Oh yeah, you need compulsory voting like we have. Compulsory voting.
Thing is, we don't only need compulsory voting, but we also need to shift from first past the post to ranked choice.
Preferential.
I actually quite like ranked choice, but preferential is.
We had a referendum on preferential, but it didn't get. It got actually quite badly defeated.
Really, because people didn't understand it. That's what it would have been.
Yeah, I don't think it wasn't explained very well to people.
Well, of course not. The Tories wouldn't want it.
And it was
pretty much.
Well, yeah, and the thing was, it was the Tories very grudgingly agreed to hold a referendum on it because they went into a coalition with the Liberal Democrats, and they were the ones who wanted this. So it
it's a good thing.
Didn't this was before my time a little bit, but didn't the Tories also run a smear campaign, if memory serves?
That would surprise me.
Always. That's what they do.
Shall we get off my rant?
They don't have policies. By definition, conservatives don't have policies. It's leave it alone.
But the people have forgotten about that referendum because of the other big referendum we had a few years ago. So, you know.
What have I done with it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Shall we get off my rant? I want to talk about a couple of news things that came up before we hit questions from the chat. I don't know if any of you read this, but scientists have actually discovered that some marsupials glow in the dark.
I don't think I have read this.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was first discovered in October of this year, and it was discovered with platypuses. They glow in the ultraviolet.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember hearing the platypus glow in the dark.
Yeah, the platypus does.
They fluoresce, yeah.
Since then, the WA Museum, so the one that's near me, has done further tests on other marsupials, and they've found at least 4 or 5 others that do exactly the same thing. It seems to be something that evolved particularly for use in Australia, that marsupials needed this ability to glow in the dark in UV. So it's quite probable that some of them can actually see UV at that point.
So
that would make it useful, something useful for them.
See, it feels the more I learn about platypi, the more I wonder if evolution was drunk for a bit.
Get a beaver and shove a beak on
Yeah,
it.
it doesn't make any sense.
Oh, they're gorgeous. They're gorgeous little animals.
Okay, I know that.
They're venomous. It's weird.
So is this only with like marsupial species found in Australia? Did you say, Jen?
Yes, it's only with marsupials so far found in Australia. It seems to be a particular thing that has evolved here. Yeah,
because generally speaking, it's mainly Australia and parts of South America, isn't it? Where
there's a couple of two species of marsupial kangaroo that are in New Guinea, and there's a possum that's in South America.
Yeah.
So, but aside from that, all the other marsupials are Australian.
Animals are bizarre.
I would guess that probably the New Guinea ones are more likely than... I don't think the South American ones have been tested, so to be honest, it's possible they do it too, and that would evolve it even earlier. But it's quite probable that the ones from New Guinea do, because they would have... The land bridge was a lot more... The connection was a lot more recent, so it's more likely that they actually have the same thing. But yeah,
it's probably not that uncommon if you think about it, because a lot of birds the exact same way have plumage in UV. So I remember seeing an article about that not too long ago.
So marsupial moles, bilbies, and wombats all do it.
It's just that some of them only got as far as New Guinea when they came back from off the Ark.
Yeah.
Small legs.
They dawdled. Yeah. They dawdled there a little bit too long, and the land bridge disappeared.
Yeah, a few seconds in biblical time, clearly.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's still fascinating that the number of animals that we find have a form of bioluminescence is quite amazing, and most of them are in ranges that we don't actually perceive.
Yep.
So
see, I quite like. I was reading a thing. It must have been actually years ago, literally at this point, about how they were testing to see if they could inject the bioluminescent genes from a jellyfish into, I think it was goldfish embryos? Just regular goldfish?
Yeah, so you could do the thing.
They've done it with rabbits.
They've done it with rabbits? Glow-in-the-dark rabbits?
Yeah, they've done it with rabbits.
Oh,
glow-in-the-dark rabbits is something I've heard, but I never fact-checked it.
Let me check that as we're talking here. So
yeah,
I've just been googling this. It's saying something about glow-in-the-dark wombats.
Yep. Of course, you have to be able to see ultraviolet to be able to see them. But,
yeah.
Which is why we didn't know.
If we want to trust the Guardian, then the rabbits thing is correct.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a few species of birds that do this that actually bioluminesce in color frequencies we can't see, but they can see for each other. There's some fairly plain looking birds that if you see them in different, if we had a wider range of frequencies to see, they'd actually be a lot more colorful than what they are to us. Which is one of the reasons why you can have some birds that look very similar, but the birds themselves seem to know the difference.
Because nature has lots of different colours, we see very few of them.
Yeah, well, our spectrum range of visibility is quite... Yeah. Well, it's better than some animals. We're better than dogs.
Yes. See, I always find it funny discussing
2007
mantises.
Yep.
Nice.
2007 glowing bunnies. Yep, it's a thing.
Tell me, do you have to shake them and break their necks before they glow in the dark? Sorry.
Then you gotta shake them.
Shake them.
You just have to put the tail off.
Sorry, that was bad taste.
Oh,
that was very bad.
I was not expecting that. Whoa.
Well, that escalated quickly.
Yeah, that escalated. Okay, well, something else I wanted to talk about. The Earth is slightly closer to the galactic center than we thought it was.
Oh, okay.
That changes nothing in my life.
No, it really doesn't. But the latest set of measurements that have been done about the velocity of the solar system around the galaxy shows that it's moving at 7 kilometers per second faster than what we thought it was, which puts it about 2,000 light years closer towards Sagittarius A star than what we thought we were. Not that it makes it huge.
That Monty Python song, then.
Yeah,
you got to update the Galaxy song.
Yeah, we're not 27,000 light years from Galactic Central Point. We're 25,000 light years. But it also means that we go around the galaxy slightly faster than we thought we did as well.
Mm.
So
it's like that. It's like that old joke, isn't it? That listen, I know I'm not the center of the universe, but I am the center of my own observable universe.
Yep.
I that's one thing I tell every one of my physics students. It's like, here's good news and bad news. Yes, you are the center of the universe. No, you're not the center of anybody else's. That's how reference frames work.
Yep.
Yep.
It's you can agree on a frame of reference, but
and you're only the center of your observable universe, not of the universe. Because as far as we know, the universe has no center. So.
Correct. Yeah.
Just like we don't know if the universe is curved or flat, because
I love
we
how
can't.
Many people. I love how many people seem to assume that we know how the universe functions and that we've figured it all out.
I'm wondering. Oh, go on, Sam.
Go on. No, go on, Jeff. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to make a snarky comment. Really, that I'm wondering how long it's going to take flat earthers to read that and start saying, look, see, heliocentrism is wrong.
You want a flat earther to read? Oh dear. It's going to take a long time.
You're asking a bit much there, Jeff.
Believe it or not, they can. It's just they don't seem to quite. They understand there is words. They don't necessarily understand what the words mean.
So they don't understand meaning.
Yeah,
they'll
see the headline. They'll see a headline like that that says "Earth closer to the center of the galaxy" the first, and they'll take that as see heliocentrism is wrong. You know, that's what they'll get from it.
And the sun's not moving as fast as you. It's moving faster than you guys thought it was.
Your numbers were wrong, therefore clearly your theory that doesn't require maths particularly breaks down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I reach over and I grab my big physics book and I say, "This is the Bible. We talk about this. If you want to talk about gravitational waves, we will."
Gravitational waves. Awesome.
Your trigonometry is probably off.
The good book that I've started reading at the moment is a book on behavioral psychology.
Nice.
Oh.
And by that I mean that one of my friends sent me a PDF copy of their textbook for behavioral psychology. And so I'm literally just reading that now.
Oh yeah. Well,
Sounds
if
like
anybody's seen my fancier background, I usually have a bunch of books. Most of those, actually, fun fact, we have like this twice annual thing, which I just call Free Shit Day, but it's curbside giveaway weekend. People get rid of textbooks, and I kind of collect them. Like if you go on Kijiji and stuff like that, people just give them away for free if you look around the end of the semester. Because when students move, especially international students, they don't want their books.
Fair.
So they just kind of get rid of them. So I've gotten many textbooks and flipped through them that way, and you'll be surprised what you can get for free out there.
See,
you gotta keep your eyes open.
Just thinking about this has got me wondering if I still have my religious studies textbook, because I want to find it and tear it apart, not physically, but examine it, tear it apart, possibly on screen with someone.
I thought you meant physically tear it apart.
Oh no, it may be Abrahamic centric, but I would like to go through it and examine exactly how wrong it is.
Somewhere I have a Young Earth creationist science book.
Creationist science.
Young Earth creationist science
it's
book.
It's not Ted Hoving's blood, is it?
No, it's not. It's I can't remember. I can't remember what the group it is that comes from, but I will see if I can find it because it is hilarious.
That's great.
3 years ago, I was working at an Islamic school, and I was actually supervising students as they went back and forth to prayer and this sort of thing. An Islamic school, and they were getting rid of a bunch of their old books. A very small school. So I actually have a couple of books in Arabic about different ways to pray and all this other sort of stuff. It's really nice and interesting. But I've got this small little thing that's just on hell. It's a little book for kids on hell, and they decided to get rid of it from school because it was too scary. So it's just like, there's your hint, guys. You won't show your kids your own literature. It's like,
God, I have some copies of some, both Christian and Islamic propaganda over there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sort of collect them whenever I'm walking past street pastors, annotate them with Sharpie and take it back to them.
That is cool.
And it's like, this is a genetic fallacy, and this is a complete non sequitur.
Yeah,
see, I find you're better. You can have more fun rather than correcting them. Ask questions and just watch them dance. And just watch them dance. And just make the more ridiculous the questions, make it into a critical questions if you can. Like, it's the weirder the better, because they will dance, and it is hilarious.
What, spatula hands?
See, my problem is the ones around.
Could God give himself spatula hands?
Yeah,
little things, right?
Could
he make a spatula so big that he couldn't lift it with the spatula hands?
God. The only thing with that is that the ones around me just hand you booklets as and when you ask them questions. So you ask them a science question, they hand you the little booklet that they have on science in the Quran or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I get my big books.
Yeah, and that's when I annotate, but I do mess with them a bit, if I'm honest. And I will. The other day, someone tried to pull one of Ray Comfort's things on me. The whole, do you believe people who do bad things should be punished? Have you sinned? Therefore, you should be punished, but to escape that, you can have Jesus or whatever. And it's like, do you think bad people should be punished? No, I think that bad people should be reformed. Have you sinned? No, I don't believe in sin.
See, I start even better. Like, I ask them to define bad. Like, start early. Should bad people be punished? Well, what's a bad person?
Yeah.
And then you're someone who does bad things. It's like, well, and then you just watch their definitions fall apart. You don't have to
defines
go
what
any
is
further
bad.
than the definition.
Yeah, the last time I dealt with any street preachers, they basically were trying to run a precept script on me.
Oh, precept
and
script.
They got really frustrated. And I actually had to turn around and said, "Listen, can I just point out? I've actually had this argument online with Saiten Bruggencrate himself. You're just running his script."
Did you see him jump on my thread the other day?
I saw he got a bit frustrated the other day. Yeah,
he certainly did, because he thought he'd start with me, and then he started on Steve McRae.
Oh, Steve! Yeah, Steve.
Oh, that guy. He's something, isn't he?
Yeah, I'll tell you what though. He knows how to defeat pre-suppers though.
Yeah,
I quite enjoy them running pre-subs. I think part of my problem is that I actively let street preachers stop me, because I'm well aware that the other people around me are probably more susceptible than me.
Yeah, you don't want them spouting off their argument.
They're not susceptible. They just think he's crazy. Keep walking.
Oh no, you'd be surprised.
90% of people. I mean,
it's always a decent chunk of people actually get stopped by street preachers and walk away, like having promised to go to their church and shit. And I actually see them going into churches sometimes. And while most of the time, no, I also enjoy pissing them off because it's easy. Especially as a polytheist, they say, and there is only one God, and I say, why? I think there's lots.
Yeah,
which kind of stops it.
I'm a dark computer, though.
In fact, a precept really can't do their argument with you at all, Sam, because when they start going, how do you know? You go, well, my God's told me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't, but I can say that.
Yeah, but you can say that.
Yeah, especially when they did the whole their three favourite words, by what standard?
By the same
standard they're using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why Chris was so funny the way he handled Darth. You know,
when he said he'd become a Hinduist.
He'd become a Hindu that morning. He said, he said, Well, I had a divine revelation this morning from Lord Vishnu. You know, it was
the favourite of both Christians and Muslims is that they will both claim that their book supports science.
Yeah.
And you can ask them where, and then you can show them lots of places it doesn't.
Mm.
We have a question from Robert X in the chat, and he just asks how do we become so awesome? I just think, for speaking on behalf of the panel, we just all are.
I'd argue that the key ingredient is probably trauma, but you know.
Deep psychological trauma.
Yeah. Hence the behavioral psychology textbook, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, no, let's take this question seriously, though. So, based on the level of awesome that we have as public personas, how did we become the awesome person we are? So how do you get involved in the YouTube and particularly what science is? Let's take the question seriously.
Oh, should we each answer?
We got?
Okay, who wants to go first?
Yeah, why not? It'll be like a little introduction to each of us, eh?
All right. Well,
I'll answer in a minute because I just got to pop out for two.
No worries, Jeff. I'm happy to go first.
Sure.
Okay. For me, originally for me, I was going to create YouTube videos about electronics and classic computer systems like the Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum and stuff like that. So I was actually going to get involved in the computer 8-bit guy and people like that, yeah. And I was setting up to do all of that. I had I've got quite a few Commodore 64s, but I was looking for some other old 8-bit machines and consoles and stuff like that that I could work with. And I was going to do some electronic projects with them, interfacing things like Raspberry Pis and Amigas with them to demonstrate to people how you could build projects that could give you some of the functionality, some extra functionality with those machines, so that people could do stuff. And then a whole heap of shit hit the fan with stuff that happened last year with Rationality Rules and a few other people where they were talking about trans people, and the crap happened. And I was already talking in the community anyway, because I'd been an atheist for a while. I just got involved in that side of the community, and then I thought, well, I have to add my voice to this. But mostly I didn't add my voice to the LGBTQ plus community. I ended up adding it to mostly the skeptic community and the atheist community, because that was what I mean, to be quite frank, I could see how much of a shit show the other stuff had been, so I was a voice for the LGBTQ plus community, but I was mostly being that voice on other people's channels and not my own, unless because there was something in particular that I wanted to address. And I was addressing atheist stuff and debunking idiots and stuff like that on my channel, because, to be quite frank, I see people like flat earthers and anti-vaxxers and people like that as more of a danger than some of the bigots that are out there, because, quite frankly, the bigots are a minimal part of the society that we live in the Western world, in Australia, even in the UK, which is pretty bad, and parts of the US are dreadful, but other parts are actually pretty good. And you can survive as an LGBTQ plus person in those areas if you're careful. But flat earthers are fucking destroying people's brains and actually making more bigots, because most of them come from that bigoted side of things anyway. And anti-vaxxers are definitely going to be killing people.
Oh, yeah.
So I was more interested in arguing that side of things than the other, and then giving my voice on other people's channels when they wanted to have somebody who was intersex or trans or part of the LGBTQ plus community be part of that voice. So I've done a lot of stuff on other people's channels about it, and only a handful of videos on it on my own channel. And so that's kind of how I got into the community. But I would always much rather be doing this, talking about science, talking about things that are important, and if it's a science factual bit that's to do with people in the LGBTQ plus community, like I started this video with the blood donation and the fact that the policy is bad because it's not even following the frickin' science, then that's something I will passionately talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just pushing towards a bigot and saying you're a fucking bigot all the time, then people get a little bit sick of that, because I'm pretty sure most people who are accepting already realize who the fucking bigots are. And we can't fight them on YouTube. That fight happens elsewhere. That fight happens in the political arena. That fight happens by writing text documents and things and attacking individual specific things that come out, like when J.K. Rowling did her fucking mental breakdown. And I did videos about that. But that's a specific case, and it needed addressing. Just in general, addressing bigotry is something you have to do, but I don't know that YouTube's the best medium for that.
Oh.
So, and there are lots of people who do it better than me, people like Katie Montgomery and that, who are absolutely outstanding with what they do. So, you know, I'll do it when I see a necessity for it, but mostly I'm into the science and the debunking and the discussion of science and trying to educate myself and other people, because I think that's important. So that's where I'm coming from.
You want to go, Sam, or should I make some noise?
Do you want to go? I've got to still process the fact that I've received a compliment.
I mean, fair enough. Yeah, okay. So, long-time atheist, going back. Previously was a. Okay, let's make this really short. Born Catholic, lost my faith, early teens, kind of leaned into physics, that sort of thing. Always questioning, always open-minded. Got into the atheist community probably around the early 2000s. Gamergate happened. I wanted nothing to do with the drama. I got on with my life for a decade, and I came back on Twitter last year. So that's basically how I ended up here. What's that?
I remember Gamergate.
So at this point it was like, okay, so if the people, I'm here for the science, and again, it's starting to get a little bit dramatic. I'm not here for drama. Life's too short, so I just kind of got on with things. So, and I'm just kind of making noise when people keep inviting me to do stuff. So, hi.
I will preface this with the reason you have to deal with this, dumbass. It's Ocean and Sirius's fault. Because important first step, stop being Christian. I found Jimmy Snow's channel first. And then kind of discovered other channels, found Ocean, which was, as a polytheist, it was like, oh, hello. Ocean's a person. And then I hopped in a few Discord servers, mainly like Sirius's, Ocean's, like that, stuff like that. And then, Ocean and Sirius did a thing where they both started complaining that there weren't enough polytheist YouTubers. And I went, I'm polytheist, and for the longest time, I've wanted to do a YouTube. So I had a look, and I was like, actually, there's not a right lot to say about polytheism individually that either Aleakai or Ocean hasn't already said. And so I will just make videos about whatever the fuck I want. And so I did, and I started by going on a few other people's channels. And so I guess now you're all stuck with me.
But we love having you, Sam, because you're awesome. Woo! And you're always good to talk to. And from my perspective, you're. I mean, there's quite a few younger people in the community, but you're a particularly young person making content within the community, and you're doing it from a pagan perspective, which is absolutely awesome as far as I'm concerned. So I love hearing your voice in the community, because I think it's a really important voice, because there's not enough young people doing what you're doing.
Yeah, see, I know a few of the younger content creators, and I'm aware of a couple of others, but yeah, it is mainly people kind of Sirius and Ocean's age, mainly, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, most of the people in the community making videos are 35 to about 50.
And it's kind of a remarkable thing. I was thinking about this the other day when Mama Atheist had Dark Matter on. And the two of them are talking, and there's a bit of fanboying going on because Dark Matter's been in the community for so long. It's just like, well, really, he was just bored back in the day and started throwing shit on YouTube. Like, if 2020 showed us anything, it's that celebrity is dead. Like, there's nothing special about people on screens anymore, and there never really has been, and I think that's positive. But that's going down a different rabbit hole. So,
so Jeff, your turn.
Yeah, okay. So I started back in mid 2017 on YouTube. And one of the things was that I had gone through a bit of a bad breakup, and I wasn't in a very good way. I guess sort of felt I needed to find myself a hobby to do, quite frankly. So I just thought about, I'll make some videos, stick them on YouTube. I got to say, I mean, I'd go back and look at, if I ever look at any of those early videos, I just cringe now. It's so crap. But a lot of what I was doing at the time was I started off covering sort of some YouTube drama shit, and I think within about 6 months of that, I got very bored of that, quite frankly, and I just felt it's just pointless. It's not really doing anything, and plus, I should say as well that when I started on YouTube, I was a polytheist, and I said after about 6-7 months, I was an atheist. So I started doing a little bit slightly more atheist sort of style content. But but the weird thing is that I've never tried to really slap myself down to just one sort of type of content, really. I mean, people know I'm not really up on science or anything. I find it very interesting. I've been trying to really catch up on an awful lot of stuff, but I'd say, let's just say on something like, say, biology. So I'm probably not as knowledgeable as somebody like a Richard Dawkins, but probably a tiny bit more knowledgeable than Kent Hovind, so we say.
Low bar.
So yeah, I am setting a low bar there, I know, but yeah, I guess I just sort of slowly started changing what I'm doing. I mean, I changed my handle about a year and a half ago to what it is now on YouTube. Ironically, Jen was talking about when she got active over that the rationality rules debacle from last year or whatever. Ironically, that's how me and Jen met, because we both.
I know nothing about that, so.
Well, it's the first time
that was probably just before I got back in the community.
Yeah, that was first time live stream I was ever on was Jen was there, Ozzy, a few others, and we won't mention the person's name, but we all needed a good rant at this one particular individual that day.
Oh, we certainly did, and we went off.
We seriously went off on it. We won't mention that person's name, quite frankly, but yeah. So I just
I forgot to post this in the groups.
Oops. I'm still a fresh enough face that I have avoided all drama up to this point.
Good idea.
Damn. Drama's easier to avoid. You just walk away, or make fun of both of them. Just make fun of both of them. I find it's like, you're both fools. This is a ridiculous argument. Goodbye, and then just let them. I don't have a lot of friends.
We're your friends.
Donna's saying she likes.
No, I'm very abrupt.
Drama is fun. Yay! No, I don't think so, Donna. I hate the drama.
Donna, it's fun where you are when you're not in it and you're observing from the sidelines, sort of like, getting a laugh off of watching the world burn, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. When I hear about past drama, like someone will mention something about what the fuck's that, and I'll get the rundown of it. It's fucking hilarious. I'm just glad I missed it all.
Yeah, be glad of that, because I mean, we had that crap that happened last year, and there's been a few other chunks of drama that I have had a few of it happen because of certain people I've been friends with on and off with it in Twitter, and I try to stay out of it now because I just can't be bothered with it. If somebody wants to start something with me now, I'll talk to somebody like Jeff or Jay, and I'll go, should I just be blocking this person? I'm getting out of this before I get in trouble, because
the block button is your friend.
the mute button or the block button is my friend at that point. And even if you only block somebody for a couple of weeks just so it calms the hell down, it's sometimes worth that, so you don't have to have that crap in your life, and it makes more sense. But I mean, I know I fucked up too. There has definitely been times, and people know what I'm talking about, where I have definitely fucked up. And but I think we all do that. We all do that in life. We fuck up occasionally, and we say the wrong things, or we do the wrong things, and because we're humans and we're fallible and we fuck up.
Yeah. If someone's not fucked up at all, they're lying to you or a baby.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Donna. It's not true, but thank you.
But yeah, I guess I just sort of got to the point where I'm at now, I suppose, and I just want to make content I enjoy making, so I'm not really interested in getting into like video for video YouTube slanging matches with people, So I mean, there's been one or two, should we say, like flat earthers I've responded to before, and they've kind of come into my comment sections and so on, to be complete dicks. But
it is tempting to start shit sometimes. There's a lot of places I could start shit.
I tend not to start shit, but I have once I feel like somebody has slighted me, I find it really hard to fucking stop myself. And I know it's why I often need to bounce stuff off people like Jeff or Jay or the people I'm close to in Twitter, and say, another person, Jenny Morgan, I'll go, Jen, am I overreacting here? I mean, I've said it to Jeff a few times, and Jeff has gone, no, you need to go and fuck off Twitter for a while.
Yeah.
Well, not like that. I don't think you actually said it like that, Jeff, but I'm paraphrasing.
That was probably the implication was
the gist.
The gist is take a break from Twitter.
Take a break. You need to take a break. Ed said the same thing to me a couple of times. You need to go and take a break from Twitter. Last time he did it, thankfully, I was actually away and staying in Albany, and Ed got Amber to actually phone me and calm me down a bit, and said, yeah, stay off the Twitter for a little bit, go and spend time with your family. So I did. Because you kind of have to, because you can't let these things get on. Twitter is not your life. I have friends on Twitter, and those friends matter to me. But outside of that, if somebody's giving me the shits, even if there's somebody who I've been reasonably close to, if they're in a bad mood, I shouldn't let that turn me into having a bad mood. And it's easy enough to do, because you've only got to have a little bit of a shit day yourself. Somebody says something to you, and that sets you off. And I know that can happen with me. Not that I'm normally I'm not aggressive, but I can be spiteful.
Fair. I just have a lot of strong opinions that people would not like and would.
I don't care about that. I don't care if people don't like my opinions, as long as they're not telling me to change my opinions. That's when I get really pissy with them.
Oh, fucking orthodox! I just.
Yeah, if you want me to change my opinion, you have to give me fucking evidence as to why I'm wrong. You don't just tell me I'm wrong and I have to change it. No. You give me evidence for it. Because if you're just going to tell me what to do, I am really going to get shitty with you. Which I think is reasonable.
Yeah.
But you don't want to do that on Twitter either, because I have got banned. I have copped 12-hour bans for doing that.
I've always been very reserved when it comes to those kind of things. So when I jump into them, I tend to not start shit I can't finish. There's a lot of things I want to comment on, but it's just kind of not my circus, not my monkeys. I'm not playing this today.
See, bizarrely, I've managed to resolve.
I can get into it, but if you do choose to get into it, you know that you're going to be there for a while. You're not going to change any opinions. You're just like, I've had this discussion 14,000 times over the past 20 years. I'm good.
I've actually somehow managed to constructively resolve about half of the Twitter fights I've been in, and I don't know how.
Oh, yeah, if you ever figure it out, tell me.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, some of them I can't really call Twitter fights because one of them was just me and Vila Bianca having it out a bit on Twitter as to a definition at one point, and we just kind of agreed that we dislike each other's definitions, but we could use them if we had to.
Fair enough. Okay, Ed, I do not understand this question, but you do have a laugh sign at the end of it, so if whale plus cotton equals peanuts, what colour do crayons taste? The answer is purple. It tastes purple. It tastes purple. Okay.
My answer to that is go and ask a flat earther. They tend to be more expert in that.
See, to me, this feels more like a SAT problem. Like church is to religion as grocery store is to blank. So I also want to take this seriously for a second. Whales plus crayons equals peanut. Sorry, talk amongst yourselves.
My answer was going to be Gwyneth Paltrow.
So, actually, my answer was a League of Legends reference. My answer was just a League of Legends reference.
That might be where Ed was going with that. I don't know it, but
So there's a character, I think it's Lulu, that one of the things she sometimes says is that tasted purple.
Okay. Oh, well, that is a good answer then. I'm going with Gwyneth Paltrow because she wants everything to taste like her.
All right, so to answer the question, if we have whale plus crayon equals peanut, that means that a whale plus a crayon.
Whale plus cotton.
Cotton. Oh, crayon. Sorry, my apologies. I'll get back to you. Got to redo my calculations.
I love the fact that you're taking this as a genuine scientific mathematical problem here.
I'm pretty sure Ed didn't put that much thought into the question.
No, yeah. I know, but these are the kind of things that I enjoy. It's almost like playing what game
Cryptic
is that?
Crosswords.
Where you're given one Wikipedia link and you have
the
to
wiki
get
game.
It's basically the same sort of thing.
Oh, you mean citation needed.
Well, here's the thing.
It's what the game show Tom Scott did. The citation needed. Yeah, I absolutely love. I actually sent him an email asking if he would let me do that show do a version of that show a couple of times. To which he said, "Please don't."
You see, now where you're doing this Jen's Corner thing, I'm a physics teacher. And whenever I used to have extra time on my Friday classes, I would try to put aside time for exactly these sort of things where I say, you guys have always been given information you never asked for. What do you guys want to know? Ask me questions, and just give them the period to ask me questions. Yeah. And the reason why I'm taking this seriously is because if students have given me questions like that, I have taken them seriously. And when you start breaking up the logic of it, then you start having discussions, and then that keeps the conversation going into other aspects. People start entering different questions.
That is one of my favorite
things. A little abstraction goes a long way. And you can start having fun with the logic, and you're getting people thinking critically in a fun way and not in a hostile way. And it's something I always found very useful to do with my students.
It's one of the best things to do in a group of friends where you're all just joking about and then start taking the jokes seriously and examining the random shit you've just said. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Stool just said my left ankle tastes of Gwyneth Paltrow, which poses more questions than it answers.
I think it probably answers quite a lot of questions.
I can just say, Chad, can we please just not do that kind of amount of depth into anything that Stool might put in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah.
Fair point. It's just what my brain does automatically.
Yeah, with most people, time.
He's somehow escaped from the corner again as Stool, and
yeah, he's escaped from that corner and coming to this corner.
Do you have any more questions, or am I just doing this?
Do we have any more questions? Sorry.
I don't know.
No one's asked us another question yet. Yeah, where was my brain going? Now, there was a paper recently written about what they think causes the bulge in... and I'm going to feel really dumb because I'm struggling to remember this and I don't have it up on my links. What causes the bulge in the middle of galaxies?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to have to look it up.
Is that really misunderstood, though? Because when you're dealing with that, you're just essentially talking about fragments of angular momentum caught up in the center of the galactic core. I mean, there's always going to be some kind of finite...
Some kind of bulge within there. Yeah.
And it's just... I mean, that they happen to be more along that axis towards the center is interesting, but that's just more of the accretion phenomena. I mean, when you're dealing with the angular momentum, that primarily gets caught up.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Is it just me who Chad froze for a minute there for? Or?
Yeah, sorry. I
froze.
No, it was Chad.
I froze. Don't worry about it, though. I didn't say anything important.
Yeah. Okay. See, I find it really funny how frequently people very much misunderstand certain things in physics or take them out of context, especially in quantum, but just generally when someone tries to be a smartass and go, when you use like a colloquial term, oh, but no, this is this technically in physics. And it's like, no, that's the high school physics answer for that.
Yeah. And I get that. It's one of these frustrating things where you're getting into these arguments and it's like, look, I'm literally an expert in this. You're trying, like, stop. Just don't open your mouth anymore because you're doing bad things. Like, it's just, no.
Yeah.
God, why can't I find this? Okay, I bring up something and then now I can't find the link for it. I was reading it a couple of days ago and it's just something that came into my head. There was multiple causes. One was, like you said, that it's due to the velocity of stars in the center. The spin of this supermassive black hole in the center can make a difference to that as well, because that can affect the way that stars orbit within the center. But something else that affects that is how recently the galactic nuclei was active. So the outer pressure of the galactic nuclei being active can also help to extend the bulge within the center of the galaxy.
All right, so you're gonna have to do me a favor here because I'm a little out of practice. Define an active galactic nucleus for me. When you say active, you mean...
Okay, where the supermassive black hole in the center of the star is creating relativistic jets.
Okay, cool.
So, one that's feeding, basically. So, if the black hole... feeding on a large amount of matter.
Okay, I just wasn't sure what you meant by active, but you're actually talking about the black hole, whether it's active
they call it an active galactic nuclei anyway, because the nuclei is technically the black hole.
Okay, I just wasn't sure of the context, but okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. But they were also looking at some smaller galaxies, like irregular galaxies, which appear to still have a bulge, even though they shouldn't have enough mass to technically have a supermassive black hole, or they don't think they do. And they think that in the core of those, there are smaller black holes plus other like neutron stars and that which are orbiting, which will eventually coalesce into being a supermassive black hole, but that mass and how fast they're orbiting each other causes a similar effect to what an active galactic, what a supermassive black hole would do, and that's why they actually get a bulge as well. And that's what I could remember from the article, which is really annoying when I can't find it.
Just looking at the chat, we do have a couple of other questions by looks.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Sure. So, Ring put one. What is the only place in the... Is it core of Discovery? Lewis and Clark camped at twice during their expedition, once going west and once returning. Now, this is not something I'm familiar with at all, so I hope one of you guys knows this.
This is more my area, but I don't know the answer to it off the top of my head.
Fair.
So I don't know because my history is dreadful.
Yeah.
I would make an educated guess at this point, and I would I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly where it was, geographically speaking. It was probably somewhere along the Mississippi. But
more central.
That's all I got. I'm a Canadian.
It would make
okay,
sense that it was somewhere central.
Well, as far as I know, Lewis and Clark, what was it? That was after their expedition was after the Louisiana Purchase, and just after the Spanish-American War when they took the West Coast, wasn't it? Or something to that effect. I don't recall exactly. But I've got a couple maps flashing through my head, and I'm not sure what order they're supposed to go in.
Yeah. Did everybody know that the TV show Lois and Clark was actually a deliberate play on words of Lewis and Clark?
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
I didn't know that was a show, but okay.
Yeah, that's the story of Superman and Lois Lane, obviously.
That wasn't a bad show. It's a shame Dean Kane's turned out to be a bit of a dick, isn't it, over the years. But,
yeah. Alright, so what was the next one? Because Ring's going to have to tell us the answer to that because we didn't.
Yeah.
We wrote.
Yeah.
Chad only had a rough idea and none of us knew. So it looks like we got a stump.
Do any of us know what the oldest known board game is? I have an answer. If it's the correct answer, I don't know. But
I've got an answer as well, but I don't know if it's correct.
I'm going to write it down.
Okay, so I will also write my answer. I'm going to
pen and paper.
Oh, are we all going to write it down?
I'm sorry, I've always got thinking paper nearby. Disregard
I don't have a pen and paper.
You can tell him I'm a math teacher.
I don't have a pen and paper next to me, unfortunately. Well, I got paper. I don't have a pen. I got lipstick. Can I write it in lipstick?
Long-term memory is overrated, guys. Get some thinking paper. Always have it with you. Come on.
I do.
You guys keep stuff in your head?
Okay.
I do. I always carry paper with me.
I have paper. What I don't think I have is a pen.
I didn't mean to make it a big quiz show thing.
I feel like writing it down, that was probably a good idea if multiple of us think we have an answer.
Alright, I can write it in makeup, that's fine.
Well, that's it.
We may all be interested if we've all got different answers or if any of us have got the same answer.
Alright. Let's show and see what we think.
Okay. So,
Okay.
That's not readable.
That. It's not readable.
What have you all?
It's back front.
I've got. Looks like we've all got different ones here.
I've got.
You and I got the same one there, Sam.
Senet. So, yes. We are butchering. Senet.
I've got
butchering we're butchering the pronunciation of that, and I'm sure
which is the Pebble game. I can't remember its original name, so. But I know it's called Go now.
So
Go, Go's a Chinese sort of variant of
the Pebble game.
Yeah. Senet is, and I am butchering that pronunciation. Apologies to Sel if she ever ends up watching this. She's one of my friends who studies Egyptian history. But Senet is a game from 5,000 years ago, I think.
Yeah, it's about the first dynasty I seem to recall. So it's very old.
See, I know that was the game that was played in Babylon. That's all I know. So it was a dice game. But
fair.
How old is Go? When was that invented? I'm curious, Jen. When did Go invent?
Go the original. Because my problem is I can't remember the original term for it. So
give me a millennia.
Go is quite old. It's another Chinese game, so it's several thousand years. Yeah. So let's look it up.
Congratulations, we are all huge nerds. We all.
Yeah, I am especially into my board games, so that is a question that I was more likely to know the answer to than other things.
2,500 years.
So it's probably Senet's a lot older.
Well,
let me do a Google of Senet then.
Do a Google of Senet. So it's 2,500 years for Go. More than 2,500 years ago, but they don't know exactly.
So the earliest representation of Senet is dated to 2620 BCE.
So another 2,000 years older than Go. All right, I think you win.
But a lot of these things, there's games that they're all sort of evolved from one another.
The
I mean,
was 5,000 years ago as well. So,
actually, the oldest board fragments, and we don't know if it was the same game, but the oldest board fragments that look like they were for Sinet were 3,100 BCE,
which is even older.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, you win.
Yeah, you win with that. What was the answer in the chat though?
What were you thinking, Ed? Did you know the answer, or was that just one to try and stump us?
Because we got all of them. We got all the possible candidates for the oldest games between the four of us.
Probably.
Yeah, I think we got but a lot of the board games that have evolved out of one another. It's like I think
Senate wins.
Yeah, I mean, like chess. I think was evolved out of a game called Taffel. So
yeah. I mean, here's a fun one for you. Tarot cards are just the predecessor of modern playing cards.
Yes. Yeah, I knew that.
I play my death card.
There are a lot of games you can play with tarot cards that are just card games. They're not about doing...
Oh, yeah. Like, I have a deck of tarot cards, but I only very rarely use them in practice. Most of the time, they're just messing around.
They're great for gaming. They really are great for gaming.
And there's more of them, which gives you more options.
It does. And you can make more fun games with it because of the variations in what's in them. So, you know... it's good fun. So what was the next one? Have we seen the just released NASA image of the magnetic field of a galaxy? Actually, I haven't, Jenny. So
I have not either. I would have to get that with Google to see it.
I haven't. I don't expect to be surprised.
No, well, it should look like any other magnetic field, wouldn't you?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. But it's just going to be primarily located around the core, as far as
around the core, and
So I'm not expecting much, but it should be a pretty picture.
Yeah. I'm pretty much of the same opinion there. I have found what appears to be a composite image, which is interesting.
Well, that would be all you'd get anyway, because you can't take an effective image of our galaxy from within our galaxy. They all are composites.
I'm aware. I was just more commenting that it appeared
where they get the picture for all the textbooks.
It's usually a picture of another galaxy or an artist.
I was more commenting that it appears to be the composite, but I'm not certain.
Yeah.
They just fly above the big flat Earth. They take a picture, and you get your gator
big
map.
Round thing.
So Nerdy's saying it's all just CGI.
Traveler's Rest is the location, Ring said.
Here is the image I found. I'll just stick that in chat.
Near LOLMT, wherever that is. That's a spot where they stopped in both directions. Traveler's Rest. So, which I assume was named after they did that because.
I have a question, Jen. Do you have a favorite Lagrange point?
Oh, do I have a favorite? I think the one that could be most useful for us is one between us and the sun.
Is that your favorite? It's kind of like a favorite color. Like it doesn't have to be the most useful or anything. Like which one's your favorite?
Well, I don't know. Can you have a favorite Lagrange point? I find the ones around Jupiter fascinating.
Jen, you can have a favorite stove top. Like you can have a favorite bit of
I'm aware of that.
You can have a favorite Lagrange point if you can.
I love the Lagrange points around Jupiter only because Jupiter has so many asteroids. Not asteroids. Meteors within its Lagrange points as it's been orbiting. It's kind of outstanding.
I have not read enough about Lagrange points to personally have a favorite, but they're all interesting from what I've read.
But for me, I think the most useful one to us is one between us and the sun. Not just for observing, but I mean, if you wanted to build a Dyson swarm in that area, not only could you use it for getting a lot of energy from the sun, you could also use it to partly shade the Earth to reduce the amount of energy getting to the Earth as global warming becomes a problem. Although, of course, the engineering for that we could technically do, but we wouldn't be able to. without major world government intervention would we be able to afford. So
actually, what they can do, interestingly enough, for people who don't know in the chat, Lagrange points are special points in an orbit where, basically from the reference frame of Earth, something more or less stays still. But anyways, so we were just talking about which Lagrange point. Well, yeah, at that point, L1, I think it is.
Yeah.
It turns out that it's locally stable, which means in principle you could put a not necessarily a shield per se, but you could even just put a powder in there, like a metallic powder, and essentially it would just make a cloud. So you don't have to engineer something the size of the Earth. You could just kind of
we could just tug asteroids into it, or meteors, and just pile it full of them like Jupiter has with its own, and they'd stay there and they'd help.
See, my favorite Lagrange point, I've got to check my numbering. I think it's L4. It's the position of the either Greeks or Trojans, respectively, with respect to Jupiter. I just love that. I just love that symmetry. There's just something beautiful about how the mathematics on that works out.
So it comes out.
It's just glorious.
It looks like a smiley. Like a smiley face.
It does, yeah. It does look like a smiley face.
Yeah, it has a smiley face. But, I mean, it looks that way with all the planets. With the...
Yeah. But Jupiter in particular has
a large amount of...
It basically keeps on sucking asteroids out into its Lagrange points, basically. For all intents and purposes.
Which is brilliant. Cool. I mean, another example of interesting things that orbit... There's a lot of Trojan moons that are around the Earth where effectively they are orbiting the Sun, but from our perspective they can look like they're orbiting us because of the way the orbits happen. It's like our moon orbits the Sun, not us anyway.
Yeah.
It's just that we also the moon and the Earth orbit each other, and then they two together orbit the Sun. So, but you've got these ones that go into sort of quasi orbits around the Earth, which look like they're full orbits, but they're not. It's just the pattern at which they orbit the Sun, and they've often been confused as actual moons, but they're not moons. They're just asteroids that are either ahead of us or behind us in our wake, and the way their orbit side means that they can look like they're insect. Every now and then Earth will capture one for a year or two or a few months, and then they release again because they're not in it. They don't get captured into a stable orbit. So but it's fascinating. So for a lot of the time Earth actually has more than one moon, because occasionally we do actually capture one, and I mean, these are tiny little moons, something about the size of a car generally. But technically speaking, we have more than one moon. I mean, you could argue that the International Space Station is a moon.
Well, at this point, I'm wondering what the definition of a moon is, because are we talking about, does it have to be natural in origin? Does it have to be spherical within some degree of measure? Like, is it a Pluto type situation? Because I'm starting to think about Martian moons and their weird shapes.
Demnos and Phobos. Well, Phobos is one that's closest to getting towards being spherical, isn't it? And then Demnos is the one that's just and Demnos is the one that's actually going to crash into Mars in the next few thousand years, isn't it? In the next few thousand years it should. Yeah, I think in the next few thousand years it starts dragging against the atmosphere, and then it's basically doomed.
Well, geez, that's interesting.
So
also speaks to a young universe, relatively speaking. So take that, creationists.
But yeah, it's kind of fascinating. Wait till Kent Hovind
gets his hand on that one. That would be so good. Just to be, okay. I can't even do a Kent Hovind impression. Oh God. Even the thought of making my voice do that is
But the things that people like Kent Hovind forget is that Mars didn't have its moons if you go back 1 million or so years ago. It might have had different ones, but it didn't have the ones it's got now because they're captured asteroids. I mean, at some point in the past, Earth probably had a few bigger asteroids that it's captured at some point and either lost them or they ended up falling in and preying into the Earth at some point, because that is the thing. It depends on if you have orbits that decay enough they'll eventually drag against the atmosphere, and at that point that it's all over. once you're dragging against the atmosphere.
Our moon is a special case because it was created during the Archean geological era. So it's basically made of the Earth through some sort of interaction there.
Well, a mixture of Earth and Theia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is there a special name for moons of that sort? Because it feels like that has essentially some sort of moonness to it. It's in some way it's identified with its up rather than just captured. There should be a special name for something like that.
Yeah, well, it's almost like our moon was formed in the same manner as us to a certain extent. It's not a capture moon, but I mean the Galilean moons would have been the same too. They would have actually formed around Jupiter. They wouldn't be captured.
Oh damn! Nerdy and Ring got in there in the comments before I did.
What? He said about
the ISS. That's no moon. It's a space station.
Yeah. Oh, you're junk shopping there, Chad.
Oh, Chad's frozen.
Yeah.
It's gonna be nicknamed Chadding before long.
Chadding.
Rather than junk shopping.
All right.
Neil, good to see you.
Hi, Neil. All right, shall we ask Grumpy's next question? Why does the Cat's Eye Nebula look the way it does?
I have no idea. I'm going to be interested to
part of that would be the age of the nebula, because a younger nebula will actually have more gas that's still spread out close to where the original supernova, or it also depends on the type of. Was it a supernova or is it what's called a planetary nebula, where it's just throwing off the outer shells? So like a star the size of our sun, when it gets to the end of its life, doesn't actually go into a supernova. It throws off its outer shells and compacts down to a white dwarf. But a larger star will actually supernova, and then the core will compact either into a neutron star or a black hole, depending on the size of the original star. And it's complicated physics, which I'm sure Chad could answer better than I could, when he eventually has a good connection again. So with the Cat's Eye Nebula, and I can't remember, I think it's a planetary nebula. So what you've got is the star that got to its end of its life has thrown off its outer cores and outer layers, and it's probably done this a couple of times, which is why you get that multiple layering effect. And it's just because of the angle that we see the Cat's Eye Nebula from, it gives it like instead of getting a more rounded shape, we end up with that eye oval shape. And it's purely a thing that it's a planetary nebula. It blew off at a couple of stages, and the angle that we're looking at it at, so it's probably slightly tilted to us, which from our perspective, because over that great distance, things that are three-dimensional end up looking two-dimensional. It gets more of an eye shape than a round circular shape. So therefore it looks like an eye. And what you've got these outer layers, which is where the gas has moved out to, that has blown up, which are still being lit from the ionized particles that are coming out from the cooling off star, and white dwarf, which are still warmer than the surrounding gas, and then you've got this gap in the middle away from between where you've had layers blow out, where you've got nothing because the gas has moved on from there, and then you've got the next layer underneath it where you've had it. So you've got a gap, you got a section in the center, which is like the iris, and then a gap where that was the bit between the two glowing outs of outer things, and then you've got the outer layers, and and the different colors we see because of the different gases that are in the different areas, and part of that would be because different gases are blown out at different speeds because of their mass and the amount of energy that was put into them. So you get a different color because of the different layers of gas that are are actually involved in the eye as it blows out. So I think I've pretty much covered why it looks the way it does.
Yeah. So, just on the topic of stars, something just reoccurred to me that frustrates me endlessly. I would like to share with you my GCSE definition that we were given to memorize of what a star is. A celestial body which does not orbit anything.
Okay, that's not a good definition. That's a dreadful definition, because stars orbit, unless of course you've got a star that's out in the middle of, well then no, even then.
Because that was our definition of stars, including the sun.
Because even galaxies orbit within clusters.
So what I did was I just kind of raised my hand and went, what about galaxy clusters and binary star systems? And my teacher was like, I don't like it either, Sam, but don't ask those questions. That's just what you need to memorize for the exam.
It's a crazy answer, because all stars orbit. If you've got a binary star, they're orbiting another star directly, but all stars orbit the galactic center if they're in a galaxy. So all stars orbit.
Yeah.
A star is any object that is massive enough to achieve nuclear fusion in its core or outer layers.
That's always bizarre to me, the fact that that was the definition we were given.
Yeah.
And it irritated me so much then, and now I've done A-level physics, it irritates me more.
Yeah. So you there, Chad?
Yeah, my super janky. I am just being super janky, so I'm trying not to talk unless I have something to say.
All right. So did I cover it pretty much? Why the cat's eye nebula
Cut my video
looks like
feed
a
to hopefully.
Sorry.
I was just going to cut my feed to hopefully go easier on my router and see how that goes.
Okay.
Fair.
Okay. And Ed just sent me a picture of the cat's eye nebula, which I unfortunately cannot show in the stream because
I'm going to say it is actually, just Google it. If you know people haven't seen it, just Google a picture of it. It's quite spectacular looking.
Yeah. 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 I mean, they're fascinating, but it's a planetary nebula, not a supernova.
Yeah.
And planetary nebulas have a distinctive look about them because of the way each of the layers are thrown off. And depending on the angle you see it at, depends on whether or not you get a full circle, or you get something that's more like that looks more like an oval or an eye. The Cat's Nebula is actually closer to round than an oval, but there are ones that do look oval as well. Yeah. And it just depends on the pattern of, as the star threw off its outer layers, how you end up with it. And because that's a fairly random process, I mean, it's a known process, but it's still random because it depends. It depends as much on the size of the star and the pattern of nuclear fusion and pressures.
Random.
Yeah,
it's random in the same way that evolution is random.
Yeah. So, because of that, every planetary nebula looks slightly different. But they all have a fairly characteristic shape. But they all look a lot different because of the angles we see them at. Which is kind of fascinating, really. Because most of the mass when a star blows off its outer cores, of course, happens in the degree of rotation. Because you've got a star that's rotating in a particular way, you're actually going to have more stuff blow off from around the equator than you are from the other bits. And I think I'm right with that. And now I've said it, I'm actually 100% sure I'm correct saying that. Because I know you do still get a lot of mass thrown off from the poles as well, because of the way the magnetic fields run. So,
yeah.
You want to correct me there, Chad?
I don't think my internet
is going to work well enough. That's such a shame.
Yeah, that sucks.
That sucks. Okay.
Okay.
It has been brilliant having you here, Chad. If you can't get your internet up and running again.
Yeah.
We always enjoy talking with you. All right. We had another question after that. Okay. Ring said, "Who is the only author to have a best-selling novel, movie, and TV series at the same time?"
Oh, well, it's not going to be Channel Punching Bag, is it? So,
well, she didn't have a TV series, so no.
If I was going to take a guess, I always butcher this guy's name, but if I'm going to, if I'm going to take a stab at get here, possibly that guy, is it Michael Crichton?
Could have been.
I'm only guessing that because he not only does he write novels, he writes screenplays and TV. And he's written some obviously very successful
Neil Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman.
So, Neil Gaiman sounds like a decent shout to me.
Yes, I would hazard a guess it'd be Neil Gaiman because definitely TV series, definitely having novels out, and definitely has been involved with movies as well.
I was going to say, I don't know off the top of my head too many movies he's written, but he's certainly written TV series and
some of his books have been made into movies, like The Dark Tower.
Yeah. I mean, Neil Gaiman
but that wasn't him. What am I talking about?
Neil Gaiman does have a tendency to keep his hand in other things that his projects get turned into, though, as far as I can tell. So, it is possible.
Yeah, I mean, he's been very involved with writing a TV series, American Gods. So I know that for
otherwise, another author I'd think would J.R.R. Martin.
Yeah,
would be.
I'm
Stephen King possibly. I don't know.
Stephen King. Stephen King would be another.
Yeah.
I'm
going to go ahead and, because I don't know the answer, give a joke answer. Quentin Tarantino.
I like that answer. Okay, so we've given some answers. Let's see what Ring comes back with on that.
Because I'm sure Ring knows the answer to this as well, you see. So
he'll give us
the answer to this.
All right, so Grumpy Old Dude asked no question. I have no idea what the answer is for this. How many prison shanks are on the museum wall in the Trenton State Prison?
I would have to Google that.
A lot would be my guess.
Quite a bit.
I'm going to Google that.
Google that because I have no idea, and it's not. I mean, even if you've asked the question in the chat, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Grumpy Old
Given that I didn't believe you,
disappear, but
yeah.
I've Googled the question and there are no results coming up.
Oh, no, I got it. I got it right.
Yeah.
Which one?
Ring. Michael Crichton.
It was Michael Crichton. Oh wow! Well done, Jeff.
That was a hell of a guess.
That was a brilliant guess.
That's a good guess. I didn't know enough to give even an educated guess.
Well, really? I know, well, I don't know if he's written the TV series, how much he's had to do with the TV series, but like Westworld, he wrote the original movie of that, and that's been a lot of successful TV shows been made of that now, isn't it? So, and obviously things like all the Jurassic Park things.
I hate you, nerdy, and I'm not even reading that out.
What's
all right?
Fuck's sake, nerdy.
Welcome back, Chad.
Hello. Hopefully,
you're kind of working. Cool. Do you want to correct my stuff on stars?
I didn't hear a word you said on stars.
Okay, because who else did you ask? Was it Ed? Why does the Cat's Eye Nebula look the way it did? Well, for a start, it's a planetary nebula, which is confusing because they don't come from planets. They come from stars that are about the same size as our sun, where they get to their end of their life and they start throwing off their outer layers. So you end up with these beautiful layered things, and because they throw them out in stages, you end up with these rings of gas that with gaps in between them that not necessarily consistent.
Yes. Yeah, to some degree, yes, but there's the Cat's Eye Nebula in particular. I'm just going off of a mental image, and I don't know this exactly. This is just kind of my headcanon. Essentially, it's still young in some sense.
Yes, it's still a young one.
In some sense, still happening because yes, the explosion happened a long time ago, but keep in mind you have a very big scale on this thing.
Yes.
So you're seeing is the hot center still collapsing.
Yeah.
And that's why it's glowing essentially because
it's irradiating and that's
exactly.
that's lighting up the gas around it. Yeah.
Exactly. And then depending on what actually exploded. Now the Cat's Eye Nebula, it's not elongated. It's actually nice and round.
It's fairly round.
Means,
so we've got a fairly flat on look to it. I did explain that if the ones that all of those nebulas are basically fairly round. It's the angle that we're looking at them at that causes them
Some of them, yeah. It depends on the initial angular momentum of the star to some degree. So
yes, because you get more matter thrown out from the center because of the spin of the star.
You can see a lot of nebulas that have that kind of conic shape.
Do you also get more thrown out from the poles because of the magnetic field of the star as well? Because
I'm not 100% sure.
Because I answered that way originally about the momentum of the star as it's spinning would actually cause more stuff to be thrown off from the center, which is why they tend to be particularly shaped in one direction. And then I thought about it and but the magnetic field would also affect that too.
Yeah, but when you're starting to think about things on that scale, you have to think about the range of these forces, right? Like the strong
the momentum is stronger than the magnetic force. Yeah.
Well, at those scales, the magnetic force compared to gravity is it goes off as 1 over r to the 3,
so the momentum from the star spinning is actually providing more momentum to the outbursting gas than the magnetic field is. Whereas, of course, once you've got a compact object like a neutron star or a black hole, it's actually the magnetic field that is stronger as far as sending stuff away because the gravity is so strong it binds everything else to it. So
exactly. So everything's brought to the scale where the magnetic force matters. So the magnetic force matters on the scale of meters, not kilometers. Yeah. So, at least for us, anyways, on a galactic scale, let's say it works on the scale of parsecs, not megaparsecs. So when you're talking about the effect of these forces, talking about anything other than gravity up there, it always makes me a little bit nervous unless black holes are involved.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
God, did you hear the ridiculous definition for a star that I presented that I had to work with at high school?
Oh, you're gonna hate this.
No, but I have a definition of star that I love to give. Go ahead.
So the definition that I was given to use in the exam was a celestial body that does not orbit anything.
Yeah, don't you just want to slap the person who wrote that?
Ooh. Because that includes rogue planets.
Not only does it include rogue planets, it when they say nothing, it means literally nothing. So binary star systems can't then orbit each other, and we can't have galactic clusters that orbit any central point.
You can't. All stars in galaxies orbit the central point. So all stars are not stars unless, of course, they're out in the middle of nowhere orbiting nothing.
Yeah, and so it's an awful definition, but it's the one I had to work with. And I thought, given your occupation, that might at least amuse you a bit.
You notice my first instinct was to find a counterexample to basically say that doesn't work and here's why.
Yes,
that was mine too.
So their argument.
I immediately raised my hand and went, "What about galactic clusters and binary star systems?" And my teacher just went, "Yeah, I know, Sam. I don't like it either. That's what you have to know for the exam."
Yeah,
and that's a problem that you see specifically UK, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I heard you talking about your A levels. That's why I mentioned. So I don't judge based on accent, but specifically with A levels. It's very similar to the IB program or the AP program internationally. You're basically teaching to a test, so you have to do it that way. It's not about knowledge, and that's a failing of the education system more than anything.
Yeah, and this was less A-levels. A-levels, we had a significantly better definition. I disremember what it was, but it was better. Yeah. But that was GCSEs, so that was 11 to 16. That was our definition of a star we were told to work with.
Well, presumably...
It's a bit like...
Yes, I'm with you. It's worthy, but I could defend it in some sense because most students don't know there are things other than stars in space.
Fair. I mean, I understand it.
Like we assume a lot of things that we know are known by people. and just keep them around. Most people walking around out there are just pylons that breathe. There's, as far as science is concerned, they're nothing.
I love that.
That's fair. I mean,
as far as science is concerned,
I was in a room full of 18-year-olds who've been studying physics for the past 7 years, GCSE and A level, and they were still asking questions like, "What is current?" And so I despair for the physics knowledge of anyone who didn't take it either, because they couldn't.
I was defining the stars as for students. I say a star is a thermonuclear explosion that is so large it's held together by its own gravity. And once they get their head around the scale of that,
that's a better example. Yeah,
because if you take a nuclear bomb and go off in space, it's going to explode and disappear. No, this bomb is so big it explodes and stays there. Yeah. And then you kind of go, wait a minute, what?
and this is actually why stars. This is why stars end, because it's fine when you're combining hydrogen, or even when they get to the stage of combining helium. But once you start combining, especially in the outer, you're combining helium in the outer cores, and you start combining things like iron in the core, the amount of energy that's released from that is too much to maintain with the gravity of the star. So the star's gravity now can no longer hold the explosion, so the star explodes. And
again, it's almost cooler to think about these things on, because I taught astronomy a couple of times going through the HR diagrams. One thing I have to describe out to students, you have to talk about it on large scales. Like stars breathe, like they like it explodes and then it collapses a little bit. So that collapsing causes more explosion, and it settles down. And then the helium flashes come, and then you get that red giant, and then that collapses, and then it goes again. So it's this breathing thing. People just kind of assume it's there, and it's not.
And they assume that stars go from being small to being big, but no, that happens over time as here's another one that I love. People love saying that we're like the third rock from the sun or what have you. We are not. The Earth is still liquid. Like, people don't get that we're, like, again, geological terms, we're a water droplet around the sun here. Yeah. Like, if you think about what the Earth is, it's mostly liquid. We're basically the slag on the surface. Yeah. And we're living on the slag that happens to have a little bit. Humanity is the slag on the surface.
We are the slag on the slag.
We're the slag on the slag, yeah.
Yes. Nothing but top notch here. Yeah.
However, Mars would be the second rock from the sun. Oh no, not there technically, I suppose, because our moon would count as the second rock.
Depending on the time of month.
If you're not counting things smaller than our, if you're not counting, I
was going to say that it also depends what you mean by rock, because there are probably a lot of rocks are probably closer to the sun.
Well, that's what I mean. We're not a rock.
It's like
not a rock.
It's like people not getting that thing of if you ask the question, which planet on average is closest to all the other planets, and people will go, "Oh, it's Jupiter" or something like that. No, it's Mercury.
No, Mercury. Yeah. Mercury is close. Mercury's closest to all of them.
On average, you have to add the on average.
On average, yes. Yeah, it's closest most of the time for all of them. Which is something that only really clicked for me when I saw the CGP Grey video on it.
Yeah, I did a video on it too. So
yeah,
I demonstrated why it is with a pencil and a protractor. No, and a compass. Sorry, a pencil and a compass. Rather than doing the math, because I thought physically showing why it's the case makes way more sense. But it's like a fascinating thing.
It's like you can explain to someone that hydrogen can explode, or you can show someone a hydrogen explosion. One of those is going to stick in their head better.
I like to make things go boom.
Make things go boom.
Things going boom is fun.
I may or may not have made a batch of thermite with one of my physics classes once.
Where was this horrible question that? Nerdy, I hate you.
Do you want me to read it out, Jen?
Yeah, you can read it out. I'm going to stumble over that.
How can the stochastic gradient descent overcome the problem of a local minimum?
Oh, that's easy. Just got to be large enough to overcome the local maximum confining it. Why?
Because Nettie was asking it, and my brain goes,
Yeah.
far out. I can't remember.
I took several minutes to work out how to pronounce the word stochastic.
Yeah,
okay,
me too.
Allow me to rephrase the question.
Yes,
how
please.
How can random slopes? Sorry, how can the downward random slope, essentially, so stochastic means random, gradient down descent, overcome the local minimum. So with a local minimum, this is where thinking paper comes in handy. With a local minimum, you're looking at something like you're looking at something like this. So when you're talking about stochastic you're talking about stochastic movement in that local minimum, you're talking about jiggling around.
Yeah, so how can you get out and over the next slump to get to the next lower point?
Exactly. Yep. So the idea is that the variation in enough that sometimes it has a probability of overcoming that and finding the absolute minimum as opposed to the local.
There is a theory that our universe sits in one of those points.
And there's a lot of theories like that. And when we say theory in that case...
I mean loose hypothesis.
It's just a theory in that case.
Loose hypothesis,
Yes, thank you. Again, being an empiricist like I am, I know the Earth is round because I've sailed around it and done the Cavendish experiment. So, I don't believe people for things. You have to. When it comes to models, a lot of people are trying to fit nth order polynomials to things, and it works. But if it actually, the truth value of any model is always suspect. So don't read. I never read too much into any of these things. Some people have a mental picture that they can describe the world with that led to this particular equation that works sometimes. It doesn't mean it works all the time. That's clearly not how the world works. So that mental image is not going to work. So when we say theory in that case, I know that the universe is under no obligation to be intelligible to us. That's one of the things I'm constantly briefing on about. And one of the reasons why I get mad at people like Stephen Gray is they're so caught up in the definitions of things that 9 times out of 10, their definitions haven't been shown to be either meaningful or either well-defined or something that exists.
Fair.
A lot of people make mouth noises and assume those mouth noises mean something. If you're referring to a tree, are you talking about this tree or this platonic tree? Because one of those things exists and one doesn't.
Yeah. See, I'm halfway between those two positions in that I very much understand how frustrating definitions are, because definitions don't necessarily help us an awful lot, especially since a lot of things within society are constructed in such a way that we can't really have a definition. Try and define art, for example. But
male, female, define those.
But at the same
there's your
time,
problem. It's assuming a category that doesn't exist.
At the same time, I had like an hour and a half long argument with one of my partners the other day about the most useful definition of the word philosophy. I enjoy those discussions, but I acknowledge how pointless they are.
Nerdy's got another nasty, annoying one for us. It's not nasty, it's just annoying. I don't see the point in these questions.
There were some people on a train. 19 people get off at the first stop. 17 people get on the train. Now there are 63 people on the train. How many people were on the train to begin with?
Well, I think the answer to the mathematical thing he's put there would be 65. But there might be something I'm misreading there in the... Because it says if the questionnaire is on the train to begin with... Yeah.
If it's a maths question, 65. If it's a trick question, just the crew.
Yeah.
Just the crew. Yeah, it should be 65.
Right.
Yeah. Nerdy's saying it should be 65. But some people say 43. Why would someone say 43? I would get it if somebody went the wrong way and thought they
subtracted
they
it
had
twice,
subtract
probably.
the 2 from it, but instead of add it and went to 61 instead of 65. I'd understand that mistake because you're not thinking about it the right way around. But I don't get this. I don't get why somebody would go to 43.
Yeah, I don't see where someone's going to get 43 from. But then again, I had to teach my...
I'd understand if somebody said 42.
I had to teach my 16-year-old little sister how to do long division the other day, so I don't have super confidence in people's math skills in the first place.
And I'd understand if they said 42 because 42 is the answer to everything. So.
I'd feel like, yeah.
Yep.
What was the next? There was one. What's the only avian raptor that hunts cooperatively?
Harris Hawk.
That sounds right, and I've heard this question.
Yeah, that sounds right, actually.
I don't recall. That sounds right, but I don't know.
No, I'm pretty sure Jeff's right.
I'm 90% certain on that.
I don't do biology. As a rule.
I don't do
biology, but I do like birds of prey.
I will say that I have seen wedge-tailed eagles hunt cooperatively too. When you're talking about the mated pairs, because they will both go out and hunt together if they consider it safe to do so. So, yeah, you were right, Jeff. So, I know I have seen wedgies do it, but I don't think it's a consistent thing they do. So,
yeah, that's.
Go
on, sorry, Jeff.
I was going to say I'm pretty sure I flew a Harris Hawk on a falconry day that I went on. So,
yeah.
Nice.
Nerdy. It is thought that perhaps the velociraptors hunted in packs. It is most likely that was the case, but
yeah,
velociraptors are not avian raptors.
Yeah, there's
the velociraptors in Jurassic Park. I don't think they were actually velociraptors, if memory serves. I did a bit of
they weren't. They were Utah raptors.
Yeah,
because they're
velociraptors would have been actually significantly smaller.
Yeah, the velociraptors are small. Sorry, the Utah raptors are the bigger ones. So.
To be fair to the makers of the film as well, the one thing that they didn't find out until maybe a couple of years after the film was released was feathered dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So I mean, other than that thing with the velociraptor, because they just thought, velociraptor sounds a bit cooler. So
that's fair.
I still wants to know what type of pizza he should buy today, Jeff.
Something, whatever it is, just put a lot of Marmite on it still.
Vegemite.
Yeah, or Vegemite, whichever is easiest for you to get hold of.
I like those, though. I know you guys can
Velociraptors were puppets.
Alternatively, get a cauliflower pizza because I'm making a bad suggestion.
Okay, pineapple on pizza. Pineapple on pizza depends on how you like your cheese.
Who's trying to start an argument here?
No, Ox just asked, does pineapple belong on pizza? And my answer to that is it depends how you like your cheese. Because pineapple changes some of the molecular bonds within the cheese itself, so it actually changes the consistency of the cheese within the pizza and the flavour of the cheese.
Yeah, which is why pineapple is one of the few ingredients that I will not just tell people to pick off the pizza.
Yeah, I don't like pineapple on pizza because it ruins the pizza, as far as I'm concerned, because I don't like it. But there are people who do, so it depends on the person and what they like in their cheese.
I like both, but that's because I've never made a decision in my life, and I'm not starting now.
Still, Ox, wars have been started over less.
See, I look at this question, I say, okay, does pineapple belong on pizza? Well, does it implies a value judgment. So the question is, what is a pizza? A pizza is basically a cheap way of getting rid of scrap food, historically speaking.
Yeah. You
make some bread, you put leftovers on it, that's what you got for food. It's basically like serving naan bread with the stuff already on it, for all intents and purposes.
In which case, pineapple wouldn't be considered scrap food.
If they had pineapple, would it have gone on their pizzas?
Yeah.
It would not traditionally have been considered a scrap food, but in the modern day, pineapple may be a scrap food.
Yes.
So in a modern pizza, I would argue it does both. Now, is it morally correct?
Well, I still prefer the argument from taste.
Yeah, the argument from taste is probably more reflective of how people think of it. But I personally
That's a moral
prefer...
judgment.
Yeah.
Not a definitional one.
No,
By
I
definition,
agree with
yeah,
you in
it's
that.
fine.
And I mean, if you ask somebody from the Mediterranean whether pineapple belongs on the pizza, they would tell you to go to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because no, they don't.
They'd say not on mine.
Not on mine, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Now, see, here is a question for Jeff when he gets back. I'll have to wait for him to get back, but I'm going to ask him, does pineapple belong on a doner kebab?
Oh.
Because the answer is objectively no, but...
yeah.
I just want to... I just want to wind up Jeff.
Doesn't work.
It's like, should you put fruit in a sandwich? That's basically what you're saying.
Tomatoes.
Well, having said that, I know people who have banana sandwiches. So
yeah, cucumber sandwiches are a very British thing,
and that's
apparently.
a fruit.
Yeah.
Cucumber is a fruit, and tomato is a fruit. So obviously, fruit does belong in sandwiches because tomato is a staple of sandwiches.
So when you start again, these are the points where people are making mouth noises and assuming that they're defined well enough to be having the conversation. They're not.
Yeah.
It's acknowledging. It's like these things are not defined.
I mean,
the sets go a particular way.
I've seen people make the argument
imagine
of pineapple on pizza about, oh, you shouldn't put fruit on a pizza, and I go, you wouldn't have a pizza if you didn't put fruit on it because you're putting tomato on it.
My favourite thing is when people try and argue.
You could go with the white sauce.
You could go with the white sauce, I suppose. Yeah.
I quite like when people go, there are fruits and there are vegetables and they are separate categories with zero overlap. Because having looked at what the definitions that tend to be used in more of a scientific-ish sense are, they don't look mutually exclusive to me. And I couldn't recall the definitions off the top of my head. But sometimes it does look like something is not necessarily just a fruit or a veg.
Yeah, I couldn't answer that one because it's biology.
Yeah, I feel like biology is this panel's weak suit.
Yeah.
It is, but keep in mind that mushrooms would also be not a vegetable in some sense. Yeah. Well, we would consider them a vegetable, but they're not a plant. So you're dealing with Venn diagrams that don't overlap in sensible ways. Yeah. And that's just because of the way we've historically used language. So.
And this
because
is
languages
why I despise language.
Yeah. That's because languages are descriptive and not prescriptive.
Yep. Same as mathematics.
Yep.
I find linguistics fascinating, but I despise trying to learn language.
Mm-hmm. I'm not very good at. I don't speak any. I speak English and math. That's it.
Sort of same, but I also speak Python a bit.
If you want to talk programming languages, I dabble. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
I'm going to be speaking Python a lot more in a year and a half. I'm going to be speaking a fuck of a lot more Python though, because I'll be going into a cybersecurity degree.
Nice.
All right, so we've got another question from Ring. Who is responsible for the piranha's ferocious reputation? I would hazard a bet that would be Hollywood.
Almost certainly someone in Hollywood.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Or the British. They probably wrote it down somewhere. Like that's kind of what they do. They're like, "Hey, you put this meat in there, and they eat it." It's like, well, if I go in there, I'm meat,
it
therefore
could be
they
one
eat
of
meat.
the old explorers who just heard about these ferocious fish, and then right. So
they
Pliny the Elder, except colonial.
Yeah.
And it amuses me how frequently problems have been caused by the British in the past, except that a lot of people don't want to accept it, even here. And a lot of my American friends seem to also not accept that Britain is the cause of a lot of problems, except the Empire. Yeah. Which is, I had a conversation the other day with someone who assumed I was still butthurt over the Empire.
Yeah.
And it's like, first off, I would like to personally dismantle the rest of the Empire because bits of it are still around.
I'm Canadian. The Queen's on my money. Figure that one out.
You need to dismantle your class structure in the UK.
We need to dismantle society as a general rule. Cough, cough. Socialism, or anarchism, or honestly, there's lots of stable positions on the left, but all of the stable positions are on the left. The furthest right I will go is heavily regulated capitalism.
Yeah, but to imply that there is not a stable position on the right is incorrect. Now, do I want it? No. Is it good for the world? No. But is there a stable point there? There is. Yes.
Well, yeah, I say stable. I would actually extend my definition of stable potentially further than you, because under stable I tend to add and is beneficial for and is acceptable, beneficial for humans.
Words have meanings. This is why we're talking about local versus absolute minimums, right? So
yeah. And that was part of the thing. I should have clarified that, but I don't think there is a stable, acceptable for humans position on the right at all.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there's lots of unstable positions on the left as well. But all the stable.
I'm only considering it without moral judgment, and in that respect, I hesitate to agree.
Apparently, we're making people in the chat hungry, by the way.
All this talk about socialism?
No, well, I think it was a talk about fruit and veggies and pizza.
I find, while I will happily accept certain variants of various different left-wing things, I think socialism is probably the next logical jumping point from capitalism to be stable to have discussions about the other forms.
Yeah, but by socialism you don't mean communism, you mean...
I mean actual socialism.
Actual socialism, yeah.
Yeah, I've had enough conversations with Irish, Swede, and Surreys, and I've read enough shit that I do know what the words actually mean.
Yeah, because there's a big difference to being communist and being a socialist.
Yeah, and honestly, communism can be stable. I mean, granted, it would be most stable in a post-scarcity society.
Well, we've never had a real communist country in this world anyway. We've had
communist countries don't work.
We've had communist dictatorships.
They can't exist with capitalist nations around them.
It needs to be a whole society that's communist. You've walked into a raging leftist conversation, Jeff.
What I really like is when people who like Star Trek watch Star Trek and they go, "Oh, wouldn't it be nice if we lived in a society like Star Trek?" That is socialism.
Yeah,
that's a post-scarcity society.
That's fairly extreme socialism as well.
That is a socialist society.
Jeff, I have an important question for you. Does pineapple belong on a doner kebab?
Is that stool by any chance?
No, that was me trying to find a way to wind you up.
All right, okay. I don't know. I just assumed because I knew Stool was in the chat, so I'm wondering if that was him.
Fair.
Any other questions I missed?
What was the last one? I've lost track.
We were just musing on the socialist states. I was just kind of listening. It's one of those things where I have opinions, but I don't know that.
Let's have a little look.
I haven't. I know.
Oh yeah, who was responsible for the piranha's ferocious reputation, Jeff? That was one that re-asked us.
Oh, god damn!
We said Hollywood in the English.
Hollywood or some English explorer, but I can't.
No, well, somebody was. God darn. Former U.S. president. God damn.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. God damn. I think it may have been Teddy Roosevelt.
He's the outdoor guy, so
yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
I remember reading an article about this a few years ago.
I still think the giant swamp rabbit and Jimmy Carter is still my favorite president story.
Yeah. What's that?
Sorry?
I don't think I know that one.
Jimmy Carter was rowing out on a boat near what's the camp that the presidents go to?
Camp David.
Camp David, yeah, there's a lake out there and he was rowing on it and he got attacked by a swamp rabbit, big fucking rabbit that was swimming in the thing, and he had to beat it away from the boat with an oar. Somebody got a photo of it. But until the press photo was found for it a few years later, nobody would believe him that this happened. Because there was the only person who saw it was the press officer, and they just wouldn't believe them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until till the photo showed up during the Reagan administration. They're like, Jimmy Carter attacked by.
See, that reminds me about. It was in the sometime in the mid '90s. Jean Chrétien was our prime minister, and he had a protester come after him as him and a security detail, usually very casual, but there was a protest going on that day, so things were kind of tight. Him and a security detail were going into the House of Commons, and a protester got right in his face. At which point, Jean Chrétien introduced us to what he later referred to as the Shawinigan handshake. Shawinigan's the place he's called. The place he's from. The Shawinigan handshake involves reaching out with both your hands, putting them around the protester's neck, and throwing him to the ground. It was a very strange thing to see a man in his 70s do, but some globalist got in his face. He's just like, get it tired. He's like, oh yes, that's how we greet each other back home in Shawinigan.
And it was Teddy Roosevelt, Jeff. So
it was.
Yeah. I remember reading an article about that a few years ago.
Yeah.
That's right, Ring. Yeah, he threw a cow into a school of piranhas or something. Yeah, that's right.
We've done better than all of you with our leaders. We had one eaten by a shark.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you did, didn't you?
And I've forgotten what his name is now. And I shouldn't, but I know I have. Harold
all
Holt.
Things to be remembered for, and then not.
Yeah.
Remembered.
Well, he wasn't found, so they assume he was eaten by a shark. He might have just drowned and got pulled out by a rip. Having said that, but he was prime minister at the time. He went for a swim at Bondi Beach, and he was never found again. But there were schools of sharks around at the time, so it is thought that he was eaten by a shark.
Was that Harold Holt?
Harold Holt, yeah.
I mean, we had an MP who disappeared, presumed dead, and they found him hiding in Australia.
Oh, that's the pants one.
John Stonehouse. He was
John Stonehouse. Yeah. But there was another missing person at the time from the UK, and when they they got hold of John Stonehouse, they made him pull down his pants and it was like, what the hell? Because George Lucan had a birthmark that was very identifiable. So they made Stonehouse pull down his pants to see if he was Lucan.
Yeah, that's right.
He was Postmaster General, wasn't he, Jeff?
I believe so. I know he was on the.
Yeah, he was.
He was on the Queen's Privy Council. Yeah,
he was in charge. He was Postmaster General and in charge of one of the major computer systems in the UK that was collating spy information, and he was leaking information to the Soviet Union at the time. That was why he went in hiding.
And he was from where I'm from, Southampton. He was born in Southampton. He died in Southampton as well. So I don't think he was ever. I can't remember if he was ever an MP here. I think he ran for Parliament here, but I think he had a constituency somewhere else. I think, but yes, you're right. He was Postmaster General under.
Yeah, see that's where I feel like I'm probably semi-obligated to make a bloody Southerners joke.
Yeah,
it surprises me how much weird history stuff I know.
But he was a Labour MP, but I think he defected to the SDP a little bit later.
Okay.
So
yeah, the interesting thing about it was they discovered that he was spying. He got out of the country. He went to South America first, and then he came to Australia, and he was picked up in Australia. But they never removed They never took his role off him as Postmaster General or as a MP after they discovered he was a spy. I was like, well no, we're not going to do that until we can put him...
I'm not sure he was actually caught... I can't remember if he was caught spy. I know a lot of it was him... He had been cheating on his wife, and a lot of what it was setting up a... life for him and his mistress. It was a lot.
He definitely done that. He was He was siphoning money off to the side as well from the what
he was doing. There was I think there was he was involved with setting up a bank or something to do with I think I'm trying to remember if it was something to do with Bangladesh or something. I can't remember.
Yeah. He was a crook, basically. He was a...
Yeah.
He disappeared. He disappeared in Miami, and then he eventually ended up fleeing to Australia, and that's when he was caught.
What about the what was her name? The French lady who was a one of the greatest duelists of her era. Oh, God damn it! The one who rescued her. The one who rescued her lesbian lover from a nunnery. Oh wow! I think everybody knows this one. I can't remember her name.
The cheese stands alone.
Yeah, sorry. Nothing. It's not as great a story if I can't remember who she is. Yeah, she had a thing for challenge. She'd grow her dad was a man at arms in the French court, and he taught her, because he wanted a son and not a daughter. He taught her how to duel and do all the things that were needed in that sense. So she's still very much a lady as she grew. I mean, she was bisexual, so she had relationships with men and women. But I have a feeling. But she had this thing of getting herself into duels with people, which she usually won because she was so good at it. And it eventually had her driven out of France.
If you're not very good, you don't get in multiple.
Yeah, you generally don't. No. But yeah, she was.
That's fair.
Or you're the hot guy from Highlander.
Yeah. Thank you, Ring. Julie Diabney. Julie Diabney. That was her name. Yeah. So she had this girlfriend after she'd left Paris, and her family weren't happy about it, so they shoved her in a nunnery. So Julie went and rescued her from the nunnery, and she did this by she got a hold of a body from the morgue, managed to sneak her way into the nunnery with this dead body, and put it in her lover's room in the nunnery and set fire to that room so that there'll be a burnt body in the... She didn't burn down the whole nunnery, just this particular room, and escaped with her lover and went to another province. And
that is a thing I've heard. And that's probably more ridiculous than my story I have about one of my relatives. But I don't know if we have anyone who particularly knows the history of economists, but there was this guy called John Law who was Scottish, and he tried to make a distinction between, I think it was a currency and a state's wealth, and he tried to set up a bank in England that dealt in checks before that was really a concept. But it fell apart. He squandered a lot of his father, who was also a businessman. He squandered a lot of his money gambling. Was wanted for something, potentially murder, because he got in a duel, and then fled to France, where he set up a bank. That's right. Where he set up a French bank to do basically the same thing under Louis XVI, and tried to make it work there. But when it all collapsed again, because it reached a point where everyone was using the paper to the point where it reduced its worth because of superinflation, effectively.
Yeah.
And then it collapsed in on itself. So he took basically what money he could carry with him and fled to, I think, Norway.
I believe it was Denmark he went to.
It might have been Denmark,
he eventually ended up in Venice.
But, when I look at my family tree, he's actually one of my ancestors, and the fact that he pulled so much bullshit amuses me.
There are some fascinating characters out there in history that you read about them, you go, really?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, Well, here's the thing. It's not. I don't think that there's fascinating characters in history. I think that every character is fascinating. I just don't think we have enough stories of normal people. Because if you ask anybody about what if their life is normal, they'll tell you no. I mean, I lived on a boat for 2 years. Nobody's life is normal. Like it's.
Everyone's lives are interesting. It's just which ones historians decide are the ones to record.
Or more accurately, which ones have the capital to have their stories recorded.
Both, I think.
Yeah.
It's
so
a
you're
bit
looking
like...
at this is where great man history comes from. Well, yeah, the great men could afford the paper.
Yeah, it's a bit like how people look at ancient Greece and go, oh, most people thought like Aristotle or Socrates, or take your pick. But they were the rich fuckers, and they disagreed with most of the poor people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And again, it goes back to that idea of playing around with words that some words make sense, and some mouth noises make sense and others don't. I mean, when you start dealing with Platonic ideals, and that's where most philosophy is done, you're not dealing with reality anymore.
Well, I'm pretty sure
there is no is in oughts. There.
As a Hellenist, fuck Plato.
I could say, I think Plato, he's the one who actually referred to the lower classes as contemptible bastards, wasn't he? But but to be fair to him, that was a pretty damn progressive view for the time, because there wouldn't be another Greek to come along and say anything like that until Prince Philip.
Oh!
Well, nobody would.
Oh! Oh, just smack the royalty there, Jeff.
Yeah. If you're from the UK and don't at least somewhat hate the royal family, you're probably either very rich or don't know enough about them.
Most people fall
They're
into
not
the
your
latter
royal
category,
family
I
anyway.
think.
You imported them from fucking Germany.
I know.
Well,
which is I find it really funny when I explain to some of my American friends that the king who was in charge of the British Empire was German.
It's why they changed their name to Windsor during the First World War.
Anglo-Saxon. Where do you think the Angles and the Saxons came from? None of them belong on my damn island.
Germanic,
says the Scottish guy.
Well, English is a Germanic language. Who the hell did I have this argument with the other day?
I don't know, but English is
probably
the language
me.
I wasn't. It was on Twitter.
English chases the languages down back alleys, beats them up and rifles through their pockets for spare grammar, basically.
It was some Christian trying to argue some point about stuff, and I said that linguistically they were inaccurate.
My favourite is when people say that Jesus spoke English.
Oh. Doesn't it annoy you in sci-fi how people go to planets and they all speak fucking English?
Yes! Unless they have some MacGuffin like the TARDIS, then I accept it.
Well, or universal translators in Star Trek. That's fine.
Yeah.
Babelfish. Yeah.
Or the Babelfish. Yeah. If you've got a MacGuffin
but that being said, Star Wars sucks, and that's why.
But I mean, I quite like Stargate, but it's one thing about Stargate that continually pissed me off.
Or when you go to other countries and they're all still speaking English in shows and shit.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Or even the concept that, it'd be pretty... You've got a linguistics expert. It's going to be pretty easy for them to figure out what the alien language means. No, it's not. Well, we are bloody dreadful at figuring out what other species... Yeah. You know, we've got other species on this planet.
Other humans are saying...
even other humans...
understand what other humans are saying, for God's sake. We have things sorted out.
Aliens might not even have evolved the same forms of communication as us.
Yeah. But, I mean, even on our own planet, between species, the only other species that we have been able to actually have proper conversations with are other apes.
Yeah.
Dogs.
Dogs,
I talk to my dog.
That is it.
My dog gets me.
I was reading
a two-way proper conversation.
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, I think the best joke act, the best sort of like play on this was the aliens in The Simpsons. When they said when they take the Simpsons, Kang and Kodos, and Marge says, "Wow, you speak English." Kang says, Actually, I'm speaking Regalian. It's just by an astonishing coincidence that both of our languages are exactly the same.
Man, that's a MacGuffin, and that's fine as a joke.
Especially in The Simpsons, which is mostly humor, especially toilet humor.
But to just ignore it like a show like Stargate does. I mean, especially they kind of had a weird excuse for it in the Milky Way galaxy because humans got stolen from Earth, and except those humans were stolen from Egypt, so they would speak languages that were derivatives of ancient Egyptian, not of Germanic languages. But hey, okay, at least it's some sort of MacGuffin. But as soon as you go to another galaxy, no.
I find Babylon 5 bizarre for that because it's like. I'm still on season 1 of Babylon 5, so I don't know if this gets addressed. But it's like, have all the aliens just learned English at this point?
Yes, Babylon 5 is... Yeah, Babylon 5, because it's an Earth station, English is considered the primary language, so all diplomats have to be able to speak it.
Yeah.
It's a requirement of it, so they read it that way.
I don't want to give too much away, but I think it's either in season 3 or 4. There's kind of a little bit of a joke where Ivanova tries to learn some Minbari.
Yeah, and they definitely have their own languages, and you will hear it spoken occasionally. Jakar will occasionally speak theirs, and you'll hear Malarian Veer speak Centauri, and so you do get to hear the others.
But it is a bit weird though when they're not on Babylon 5 and on their own planet speaking amongst themselves. Yeah, they all do speak in English still, so there is that whole.
That's a bit of a plot hole, but it's not inescapable.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's really just to help the TV audiences along. But yeah, you really wanted to pay heed to that. Yeah, you would invent these languages and have them just speak in.
Which I've got to respect Star Trek because they have the universal translators, but you still get to hear the other languages like Klingon and Cardassian and things like that. So that although they're not properly formed languages because they're just weird things where they have other words that are directly translate into English words. But
you cannot appreciate Shakespeare until you've read him in the original Klingon.
Yeah.
You remember that line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where languages are kind of weird.
The thing is that even human languages, like, not all words have equivalent translations.
Yeah.
Like,
again, you're dealing with...
I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this, but... Kurwa, fuck, it's a Polish swear word. I can't pronounce it properly. Unless I've stubbed my toe, and I'm not stubbing my toe. But it doesn't actually have a direct English translation and can fit in for several English swear words, but only in certain situations.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean you get that in every language. Like one thing that you guys probably aren't aware of is that the French in Canada have their very unique way of swearing. When the Quebecois when people who speak Quebec French swear, people from France wouldn't know that they're swearing. They would just think they're very religious because they
the languages diverge that much.
What's that, sorry?
Because the languages diverge that much between French Canadian and actual.
It has diverged. They're still intelligible, but just the culture is so different. Quebec has had a very bad history with the Catholic Church, so they're very anti-religious in some sense, but they're still very Catholic. They're just very anti-Catholic, so they're very unstable in some sense. They're also anti-maskers and having a hard time right now.
You even get that with like us all talking online, like some of the things that I'll say colloquially that are Australian. You guys might not get. Certainly, a lot of Americans won't get.
I mean, we do better, but I suspect because we talk to people from other countries, we've picked up a few things.
I think there's also a lot closer ties between our language and our slang type stuff between Australia and the UK because the divergence is so much closer.
I actively avoid using certain words that I would normally just use when we're on stream.
Yeah.
Because if I say that I'm buggering off for a kip,
I know what you mean. You're going to go away and have a sleep.
Yeah. But I've had Americans look at me when I'm high and slip into my natural accent and forget to not use certain words and just not understand what I'm saying.
I get accused of sounding like a pirate all the time, so if I'm drinking, I get a very...
I've got to admit, sorry, Stool, if you're still in the chat, I've got to admit, I love these little backhanded compliments you give me on Twitter. He's just shared the link to this stream saying, despite me being on the panel, this is actually a good watch.
It's all right. He started talking about my boobs again in chat.
I'm not paying attention to chat at all. Are there questions? Is that still a thing we're doing? Or are we just hanging
out? I don't know. I don't think we've had a question for a while.
I've not seen any questions besides maybe Ox saying, how did humans get into Star Wars?
Yes.
I just saw that as well.
Yeah.
The answer to which is lots of bullshit.
Convergent evolution.
In theory, but they appear to. I don't even know with Star Wars because if memory serves, Earth isn't even actually a planet, and
no, it's an entirely different galaxy.
No, I think it actually does it. If I remember,
it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it's an entirely different galaxy.
I think in the Legends lore, which Badger will argue is the real canon.
That's why we can
Disney is canon, Badger.
Earth
it's
is part
canon.
Of the, yeah.
I would also argue it's canon. I've just not read that. So
I haven't read the story, but there was something where Earth was referenced, or there'd been humans or something that had come from Earth. It was I can't remember the context, but Earth is part of the Star Wars universe.
Earth was a planet in the Star Tours travel agency, operated on at some point between 1 and 0 BBY.
So Earth does actually exist in the Star Wars universe.
I'm looking at Wikipedia, which includes expanded shit. But Disney retconned a lot of shit, so it's probably not canon now, but I would consider that.
And it wouldn't be canon if you look at the original crawl from the episode 4, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, would suggest that it's not our galaxy.
Unless, of course, Earth there is separate to Earth here.
Yeah, there could be an Earth there that's separate to Earth here. Maybe they have their own Earth, which is where the convergent evolution happened.
I'm just thinking about Dragon Ball. Normally, I just can't help but think about Dragon Ball Abridged ERs. What's this?
Normally, Wikipedia does put you between Legends and canon, but yeah.
Yeah, I dislike how much they just got rid of from the expanded universe, because sure, the expanded universe was contradictory already, but that's fine. That was part of the fun of it.
Well, we've been going nearly 3 hours. We should probably think about winding up.
Have we?
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's been quite a chat.
It's been an awesome stream. I am considering doing another one of these tomorrow night for me. If you're interested, Sam. I don't know if you'll be available, Chad.
Well, if I am around, I might be re-dyeing my hair.
That's okay. You can re-dye your hair on stream.
I was
not going to work.
I'll liaise you, Jen, because I was thinking of doing a stream possibly tomorrow myself, just like an open chat hangout. But if you want to do one of these,
evening my time or evening your time.
Well, I normally do in like the afternoons.
Okay, well, I've done my stream of this for this week, so I'm fine with joining up on you and doing a stream on your channel. That's fine by me, Jeff.
Yeah, I might just because I might just put something out because obviously I'm not doing the asterisk thing with Hissy for we're having a little break, aren't we? And then
yeah, and of course there's Six Pack on Sunday night.
Chris is doing Sunday anyway, so
yeah.
So I might just do like
you have
an
tomorrow
open
night because I
thing.
nicked tonight from Dave when Dave said he wasn't going to do a stream, and I thought it'd be nice if somebody put something to fill in the void a little bit. So yeah. So tomorrow night, people, or afternoon if you're in the UK, or tomorrow morning, we'll be doing. Jeff will be running a stream on his channel. You got any idea what you're going to be talking about?
No, to be honest, it might just be an open sort of just a open chat.
A little bit like this.
Yeah, that a lot. This what this turns into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably without the rant at the beginning.
Yeah, just like we stump you for like 45 minutes of each thing, and then the rest of it is just bullshitting.
Yeah. It was good fun though.
It is. It's excellent fun.
Alright, so that's what Jeff's got happening. Sam, what have you got happening?
I got nothing.
I am writing a script for a video, but given how long it takes me to get a video out, that won't be for another few weeks.
And if you've done with your hair by the time Jeff does his stream, you might hop on there.
Yes. Although I suspect I'm going to get... one of my friends has asked if they're allowed to dye my hair, so I suspect I'm going to get dragged into staying at theirs until like 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, okay. So
I feel insecure here because I'm not used to having the worst hair in the stream. I'm not used to that.
No, your hair's fine, Jeff.
Say, my hair's been in this bun for 3 days, so I don't know.
Fair.
I am pretty sure that Sam has the best hair on this stream, though. I'm sorry, Jeff.
I've seen Chad's Viking-style braids when he's had them in, and you know.
Oh, they look awesome.
I get jealous. I get jealous as hell.
I love the colour your hair is now, Sam. I'm surprised you're letting anyone dye it at all.
Oh no, I'm re-dyeing it the orange colour.
Oh, you're re-dyeing it. Oh, okay.
Because roots.
Roots. Yeah, I can see that. The orange looks good on you.
Yeah, I enjoy the orange.
Chad doesn't have a channel, but everyone should follow him on Twitter. I haven't put everyone's links in the chat yet. I apologise, and I'm not that organised. But
I've got to wait. By the way, here, hold on. I'm going to address something in the chat. I am totally used to having the worst hair on the stream. Says the bald guy, Stool.
It's all right. You know what Stool's like, Jeff. You got to expect.
I know. I I'm just messing with Stool.
Really cringe video.
Oh, Chad, you're kind of cutting out again.
What was that, Chad?
Yeah, we're right. We're wrapping up.
Oh, no, you're back.
I don't think I said anything.
You're back. You're back now. But
okay.
Awesome.
Okay. I think it happens when my phone wants to update stuff.
Okay. Fair enough. But yeah, people should go and follow Chad on Twitter. Go sub and follow Jeff. Go sub and follow Sam. And if you're not subbed to me already, why the fuck not? Hurry up and sub. And follow me on Twitter. My Twitter link is in the description already. But I will I'll add Sam's, Jeff's, and Chad's in after the stream. And yeah, keep an eye out. I my aim is to start doing 2 of these a week. So hopefully I will get one that's a daytime one for me that will make it evening for the US people in next week, as well as doing another evening one for me, which is afternoon UK, morning US as well. So normally I do a Saturday night and some morning during the week. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know when that's happening, or if you're subscribed, you'll hopefully show up in your list. But yeah, I'm enjoying these formats. I like having chats with intelligent people who know things, and I can learn things. And I like being shown when I'm wrong too, because that's always good.
Fair. And these humans, I think it's this direction and this direction from where I'm sat, but these humans are excellent. So. Yeah,
you got it right. Awesome. So once again, thank you to everybody who's been here throughout the whole thing, or is here now, or was here at any point. You're all awesome. I love you all. And we will hopefully see you all tomorrow night tomorrow, whatever time it's going to be for you, over on Jeff's channel. All right.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.